Okay, good morning. Good morning, all. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 9:02, Wednesday, September the 15th, the Township Muskoka Lakes General Finance Committee meeting. Welcome all to the public, to our committee, and to our staff members here and present in the room today and on this call. I want to confirm that everyone is present, save Councillor Committee Member Nishikawa. So we're awaiting Councillor Nishikawa's presence. I want to confirm that she is the only one at this point in time absent. I will confirm that the CAO clerk and members of our senior management team and staff are present today. Public agenda, or public input at least on this agenda, was invited at the following email address: TML public comment at muskokalakes.ca. There was none received. I'm going to read a public notice here that today's meeting is being live streamed and recorded on the Township of Muskoka website and YouTube channel. By participating in the open public meeting today, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded and posted online. I would like to acknowledge that there is a supplementary agenda which was issued to add Liz Beattie, President, Fairhaven Island Association, to provide public comments, re-item 5B, parking bylaw enforcement, Beaumaris Road report. I would ask at this point in time, committee, if there are any disclosures of pecuniary interest. Okay, seeing none. I would note for you all, the motions have been pre-populated with random movers and seconders to expedite this meeting. And in terms of voting, members shall physically raise their hand until the chair has confirmed the vote. If the vote is unclear, a verbal vote shall be recorded by the clerk. This is not considered a recorded vote. So thank you for that. I'm going to move along here to our invited delegations. So I know they're all here and present. I think I will, first of all, invite item 4A. So Mr. Sal Ricottone to attend regarding Glen Gordon Road. So, sir, welcome. You have the floor. We'll let you in here. I know there's, I believe there's a photographic resource that we'll be sharing. Okay, good. We'll just get him in here. Flawless.
And the screen share is going to be challenging to give it to me.
We would like to take this in a sort of progressive order, so we'll give Sal a minute to get connected and get on here. Do we know he's here?
He is in the waiting room on 2 devices, and I've admitted him, and it says join ... So that usually indicates that.
Okay, Sal, hopefully you can hear us, Mr. Ricottone, and you can work your way through your electronics there, and we'll await your arrival. Hmm. Okay, so we have nothing?
Gord Roberts says it's in it. He knows the gentleman.
Yeah, Gord has to say, wants to say something. Gord has got his hand
Go-
up.
Gord? Committee Member Roberts, you have a thought?
Yes, if the constituent is experiencing difficulty, I did visit the site. I did get his photographs. And rather than this being postponed in any way, I could communicate what I heard from the area.
Okay, I suppose in lieu of him being here, if you have insight to share for the committee, I know we were going to be receiving this as information only anyway. So if you want to, I'll give you that latitude there. So go ahead.
Thank you very much. And Cheryl or someone, would you bring up the photographs? The concern of the area, the people at the end of Glen Gordon Road 1, is that there is a significant hill at the end that is becoming in disrepair. And for a few years now, the township has only been patching it. And the concern is that this hill, this road that is seasonally maintained by the township, is going to basically break down and be not accessible to the approximately 10 properties beyond the top of the hill. In this picture number 1, you'll see that the state of the hill, the patching that has occurred. The picture really doesn't show on the number 1 picture onto the left-hand side. There's a significant 20 or 30 foot drop off straight down from the road. Next picture.
I have to go in and get.
Oh.
Next picture, please. Could they've asked for picture 2? Yeah, here it comes.
Okay, there's pictures 2, the breakdown, the multiple patches that the township have put on. Next picture. This is the edge of the road. You can see the edge of the paved hill. You can somewhat see the slope of the hill. That log over the other side of that log, it drops off really, really well. And any cart that goes down will roll if they don't get stopped by that log or maybe a tree. Next picture. I'll go through these quickly.
I believe he's on.
Okay, apparently, thank you, Committee Member Roberts. So I believe Mr. Ricottone is available now to us. We've seen the photos.
Yeah, I've been doing it.
Is he here? Wait,
Let's see, you come on the screen share.
okay.
Yeah, connecting to audio.
He's in. Okay. I wonder if we could call on Director of Public Works Becking while we seem to still be having difficulties. I wonder, Director Becking, do you have knowledge of this road in any way, shape, or form, Glen Gordon Road, that you might provide comment to us, just for what that's worth?
He's on mute.
Okay, Sal, you're on mute, I guess, but I'm going to let Director Becking speak first. Ken?
There, I've unmuted there. Hello.
Okay, Sal, so if you could just hold for a minute now, unfortunately, I'm
No
going to ask
problem.
Director Becking to comment. Thank you.
No problem.
Mr. Chairman, members committee, yes, I visited the site. The description given by Councillor Roberts is an accurate reflection of what's there. It is a seasonally maintained road. My understanding is that it is used on a year-round basis and receives winter maintenance from the residents. The road, or at least the hill portion of the road, does require reconstruction and brought up to to a minimum standard, which would address both width, grade, as well as the need for protection, particularly on the one side with respect to guide rail and the like.
Okay, I'll let Sal, thank you, Ken, for that. Sal, I'll let you comment or provide, if you can provide more information or different insight. We have heard from two parties the obvious conditions of that road. So go ahead, Sal. Welcome.
Okay, good morning. All I've heard was Ken's portion. I missed Gord's, but it did sound pretty accurate what Ken was relating. I have been here at this property since '92, and to access my property, it's about a 300-foot climb on a steep hill. It's paved, followed by a sharp turn at the top around a rock, and then another 100 feet of pavement. And I think the hill may well be over 50 years old. When I was a kid, my dad built at the bottom of the hill, and we used to toboggan down that hill in the early 60s. So I don't know the exact age of the hill, but it's aging. And the township in the past has done patches, and the patches they're coming away from the main road. There's some layers that are 4 patches deep, and they fragment. They're not adhering to the road. And I have to periodically remove all these fragments because we lose traction coming up the hill. So my concern is heavy equipment like a fire truck or anything, or even my 4-wheel drive vehicle, if it's not cleared off regular, these fragments cause you to slip. And 4 or 5 years ago, there was an incident, a fire at the top of the hill at one of the residences. The fire truck came in, he made it okay, but it wasn't fragmenting like this back then. The issue they had was with accessibility with bush. They took off some mirrors and doors apparently, but they did make it. But my fear is that now with the fragmentation, that they might not be able to get up without being, cleared off properly. And you can never know when an emergency might come along. And beyond that, I know it is a seasonally maintained road, and beyond the T to my place, I've always graded the road after rainstorms so that the garbage truck and any other vehicles can make it in. But that's my responsibility. It's the hill that is my concern, and it's twofold. It's the accessibility, meaning the pavement surface is now making it difficult to access the full traverse of the hill. And the secondly is the shoulders of the hill. I gave some pictures there showing the erosion, pictures 3 and 6. The shoulders are washing away, and this is recent, maybe in the past year. And once the shoulders go, the pavement will follow with it. So more concern there. Plus the cliff is very steep. And as Ken said, a barrier would go a long way to protect anyone that might have a mishap on a slippery hill, and even in the summertime in the rain or anything like that.
Okay.
And that's pretty much what I'm requesting, or
Okay,
at least
thank you.
talking about. Okay.
Great, thank you very much. I wonder if I, just to move this along, but certainly to acknowledge this piece as we begin our meeting, I wonder if committee has the appetite to ask of Public Works to come back to next meeting with a report on this particular. I know there are very many places like this in our townships on these seasonal roads as well. And I have a larger, more general concern of sending our Public Works essentially to one solution. So I'm wondering if there's an appetite for that. Mayor Harding, and then Councillor Hayes.
Thank you very much, Chair Zavitz, through you to Director Becking. Director Becking, I'm just wondering where this particular road and others fall within our roads needs study. We have a lot of roads and a lot of needs, obviously. What was your time frame for addressing this road? Obviously, you know about it. So certainly on your radar, just looking forward to, and maybe the delegate could understand when we anticipate updating this road.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, in response, the road is not included in the 10-year capital forecast at this time.
Okay, Councillor Hayes.
Thank you, but the mayor asked my question.
Okay, good, thank you. Okay, I wonder if I could just sort of get a nod of heads. Could we ask of staff to come back on this one? Or does this wait until budget where there's a fuller, more fulsome discussion on road conditions, et cetera? So I wouldn't mind. Okay, so there's the mayor again, and then okay, well, go ahead, Mayor Harding, go ahead.
Thank you. I guess to Director Becking, it's not on the 10-year capital. We have a number of others that are probably not on the 10-year capital. Maybe I think appropriate, Mr. Chair, is for the director to bring us back just an overall roads needs, how we would deal with items like this in particular, because this will not be the only item that probably is not on the 10-year capital plan, and need to address that and understand, do we do it on one-off basis? Do we have a flood of 18,000 delegates coming in here saying my road's bad, my road's bad? Anyway, I look to Director Becking to guide us forward as to how we balance the budget and yet take care of our thousands upon thousands of kilometers of road across Muskoka Lakes.
Okay, before I let the other one speak, I'll just let Director Becking, if you had a comment on that, or that seemed like a...
No, Mr. Chairman, it appears that the past practice is not to be has been to not include seasonally maintained roads in the capital works forecast and to address any deficiencies through routine patch and repair type work as it relates to this item, but it's certainly not the only such situation. Clearly, patch and repair is no longer a viable solution, and council needs to take a more fulsome approach to dealing with the issue.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Edwards and then Councillor Roberts.
Thank you very much. If it's not in the 10-year budget, I think we should be looking at it, and that it is a safety concern. And I would support putting something in this year's budget for it. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Councillor Roberts.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and through you. I too think this is one that needs to be addressed. There may be others, and we should be considering adding the seasonal roads, because seasonal roads are our responsibility for safety, for accessibility, etc. On this particular one, it's been drawn to our attention. I was out there, the road is breaking up. So it's not if this road will fail, it's when. And it could stop. It's the only road in to these 10 properties. And I think that we need to have the director come back and maybe give us a couple of scenarios of one that would do the whole job as bring it up to standards. One would put it back to what the township has been doing for 50 years on that hill, just to that state. Because maybe then we look at the complete picture. So that's my input. Thank you.
Good, thank you, sir. Councillor Jagowitz, committee member Jagowitz, go ahead. Frank.
Thank you, Chair. Just looking for a clarification from staff. The comment was made that these types of roads are not in the capital forecast, and council or committee should possibly look at that policy. So my question to staff is, did a previous council direct that these not be included in the 10-year capital forecast, or is this a staff situation? Maybe if it has some clarification on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ken, might you, Director Becking, might you be able to?
I can't, Mr. Chairman, speak to why the situation is what it is. I'm simply reporting what I know to be true. And it seems to have been a consistent past practice. As to how it happened, I can't speak to that.
Okay, I'm going to let the CAO have a comment? Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, members of committee. With respect to from Mayor Harding's comments, if committee wishes for staff to come back with sort of a review of the roads needs study, it's not clear to me whether or not the seasonal roads are included in the roads needs study. Mr. Becking can perhaps clarify that for us. That said, if committee is moving towards including seasonal roads in your overall 10-year capital forecast, I know that committee has expressed concerns about the quantum of our 10-year forecast with respect to permanent roads and other infrastructure. So if you decide to take that course of action, there will be the overall quantum of the 10-year forecast will increase. To how much it remains to be seen. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hayes?
Yes, I believe my question follows along Mr. Hammond's, and that is in some kind of a report, could Mr. Becking provide the number of kilometers that are seasonally maintained and the number of kilometers of seasonally non-maintained roads, so we have a good idea of exactly what we're looking at?
Yeah, fair enough. Duly noted, I hope. Director Becking, Councillor Nishikawa?
This would be huge, though, a huge amount of work for Director Becking. So I hope that we're not looking at getting a report back in 30 days, that type of thing. Our conversations with seasonal roads in my history has been that, and in most cases, it wasn't that roads were paved either. So I don't know, that's just my experience, but that we would just maintain the seasonal roads primarily by grading and fill when needed. So I'm gonna say that this is a huge project. If some of us might remember the old discussion about Trafalgar Bay Road, for instance, and those year-round residents, although it was on a seasonal road, made delegation to council a number of years ago. And in fact, we sort of stayed firm about how we treated seasonal roads. So I think this is a much bigger project, and I hope that we are not expecting the director to come back with these answers, as I said, within 30 days or something. I think that there's a lot. We still need to deal with some of our major throughways. And I'm not saying that this road shouldn't be dealt with. I would like to see perhaps an idea of what this particular road may cost, because this would give us a good example to highlight what those numbers were, but to do the whole seasonal road thing is a huge project in my mind.
And I would certainly concur. Thank you for that. Okay, so Councillor Mazan and then Councillor Bridgman.
Thank you, and through you. Certainly looking at those pictures, it would seem that the road is in need of repair. And if there is a safety and an ability to access, I guess I would defer to our Director Becking. At some point, some kind of effort has to be put in from a safety and access standpoint. My bigger question, or maybe the global question here is this the type of thing that would be included in our transportation master plan? Because seasonal roads that are creating access to seasonal properties like this, is this something that would be contemplated? And I think it's maybe a nod to what Councillor Nishikawa is saying, that it seems like it's a much bigger, more global project. So is that a natural fit, or is this something that would be outside of that?
I don't know, Director Becking, I suppose.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Certainly, there are some policy issues that need to be addressed, and the transportation master plan will deal with some of the larger picture issues. So the short answer to the question is yes, that's one element of it. But I think there's also some other broader issues that council needs to address with respect to the legal standing of these roads. As an example, I can say to you that in law, there is no such thing as a seasonally maintained road anymore. It may have existed at one point in time. It does not exist currently. It's either a municipal road or it's not.
Good. Okay, thank you. Councillor Bridgman?
Thank you, Chair. And actually, I have two, if you don't mind. The first one was actually legally, if this road is unsafe, I think we need to really consider that from a legal standpoint. My second comment, and Director Becking, so I'm assuming then that these seasonal roads are in our operating budget, and they're just part of the year-to-year operating budget when you do the patch and the whatever. So if you're doing a bigger report, I would like to know how much that costs each year as a ballpark, because to me, that would move into the capital budget if we decide that this is going to be part of our roads budget. So I would like to see those numbers. And again, I understand it's a big project, not looking for immediate responses. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Councillor Roberts, last comment, and then we'll move on.
Thank you, and Chair, and to you, Chair. So we had a constituent come and express a concern. It's a specific concern of safety in their area. We had some really great conversation about future things to discuss similar roads. But we still have the constituent sitting in front of us asking the question, what are the township's plans to mitigate the safety concerns that pertain to this hill, and will it be soon? This is all they're asking. So we need to come out of this meeting with something for this specific hill, this specific location, these specific health and safety concerns. That's what I ask.
Okay, thank you. I'll give the mayor the last word.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To Councillor Roberts' perspective, I agree that we have a delegate here asking a question, but it's opening Pandora's box for a whole bunch of seasonally maintained roads. And, we're always concerned because if we go down this road right now and replace this and pave this road and change the geometry to this road, are we going to follow up with 30 other roads that we have to do that, and we end up with an annual $10 million cost to do so? I would really like our Director Becking to advise at one point when he can the number of roads that we're outside of our current 10-year capital forecast, what we put in place in our annual operating bond budget to maintain these roads, the type of surface treatments that we typically see on these roads. To Councillor Nishikawa's perspective, maybe these all go back to a granular or a gravel type road that get maintained annually with a grading. I think we need to literally take a brief step back. I appreciate the delegates bringing this to our attention, and there's no question that we need to address this, but it's also going to flag for me that we have a number of roads that may also need to be addressed. So I'd really love our director to advise us accordingly how his best strategy is. And at the end of the day, this is going to come down to dollars and cents for all of us as we balance our budget for 2022 and beyond.
Good, thank you. And I'm going to call on Frank Jagwitz, but Frank, if I might for just a moment, I will ask Ken with what the mayor just said. How does that look to you? How does that feel to you in terms of that wish and that bigger picture in aggregate for you to create that report? That sounds like it could be a few months away.
I would agree, Mr. Chairman. Given the current workload that staff have on their plate, I would, to be honest with you, I don't think I'm going to be able to get to it before November or December at the soonest.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask Councillor Jagwitz his comment, and then we'll wrap this up.
Thank you, Chair. I generally support the mayor's comments on this, but I do have one more question. Once again, this is new to me, so I'm trying to learn also. The question is, so this is a seasonally maintained road. I assume it's a township road. It's on township property, I assume. And is the road used in the off season, or do people actually live there or use it? And how is it maintained? Because that to me may have something to do with it. I think we have seasonally maintained roads that are not used in the winter, and I'm just curious whether this is one that is used in the winter.
Director Becking, could you speak to that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. My understanding is that there are permanent residences beyond this point in the roadway. My understanding is that the residents, either individually or collectively, maintain the road during the winter months. Our current maintenance program only addresses what is considered normal maintenance, so non-winter type activities.
Okay, good, thank you. I wonder, before I call on Councillor Kelly, just a question to you again, Director Becking. This road is paved, and again, I think it's the paving speaks to the sharpness of the incline, if you will, the degree of incline. Is that a township paving job, or is that a local group got together and paved it?
Mr. Chairman, the hard surface treatment is a purely practical condition. The vehicles would not be able to make it up the grade if it were not, and we would constantly have to be in there grading it. So it's a question of what is the most cost-effective and surface that provides the service that the users require and minimizes the cost to the township. It's a standard treatment that we use on all seasonally maintained roads where the longitudinal grade of the road is beyond about, say, 7 to 10%.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Kelly?
Thank you, Chair, and through you. I've got to take a little bit of a different look at this. If I heard Director Becking correctly, there is no such thing as a seasonal road. It's either a municipal asset or it isn't. And as long as it stands as a municipal thoroughfare, then whether we like it or not, whether we put signs at the end of it, assume at your own risk or not, we're in the chain of risk for any injury or damage or loss that results because we haven't maintained our own assets to the standard that they need to be maintained in order that they be used the way they're intended to be used. I think probably, I'm guessing, the concept of a seasonal road has died, just like the concept of a seasonal cottage. Everything is now 4 season. People are coming up. I'm hearing that the residents, seasonal residents or otherwise, are getting together and snow plowing and throwing salt around and sanding. I can't imagine that the township should be comfortable letting residents take it upon themselves to mitigate the risk by road maintenance on their own. I'm going to try that on Bailey Street, but I bet I won't get away with it. And so I think before we start chasing our tail about how many seasonal roads there are that we need to maintain and what condition they're in, I think I'd rather understand a little bit about what is this road now, if it's no longer classified or if there's no longer a classification for a seasonal road, how many other municipal roads are not included in the capital budget? And, some wild guess as to what it's going to cost us to mitigate the risk of owning those thoroughfares and not maintaining them to the standard that's expected of a municipal roadway.
Okay, good. Thank you. Councillor Edwards, then we'll wrap this up.
Yes, thank you very much. I agree with Director Becking. Large sloped hills should be paved and that they wash out, as everyone knows. And a seasonal road, but seasonally maintained road is slightly different. We have many in the township, and I don't think we could afford to start looking at them every road as a fully maintained road. And that people bought on them. They knew they were seasonally maintained, and that, so they should be taking that risk. But as for this one, I think we should do something sooner, not later. I would put something in the budget for this, get a price on this one, and then look at all our other roads and take them one at a time. But this one we should be doing something about. Thank you.
Good, thank you. I think to wrap it up, before I think the CAO would like a final comment too. What I'm hearing is perhaps a twofold approach to this. Number one, to ask of our director to come back specifically next month on an exact analysis, if you will, of this particular locale, and secondarily, requisition, if you will, through Director Becking, that longer plan that talks about, I guess they're not called secondary roads anymore, or sorry, seasonal roads. Are we calling them secondary, or are they tertiary? Is there a name for them now that we simply won't acknowledge seasonal any longer? I mean, that, to your point, let's get with it with the time. So would we as a committee be happy with a two-part approach to this, which would be, let's look at this next month, and if it needs, in the terms of interest of time, go to council with a report on what this particular road, I think we're going to be surprised to find out what it's going to cost. And but then that's going to serve that larger purpose of that other report down that road, November, December. Probably we can factor that into budget discussions for 2022. Is there some appetite for that committee? Because otherwise, you know, I think that we're rather stuck here on this, which is a large issue. We can serve our constituent by at least acknowledging that particular problem and moving forward with an analysis of that particular location, get a cost estimate of what it will be, and then review that at our next sitting. Anyway, show of hands, nodding of heads. I see that, but I'm trying to move this thing on. So is there, okay, so Councillor Nishikawa and then Councillor Hayes.
Excuse me,
Go ahead.
thank you. I was feeling a little bit confused because I thought we were wrapping up a whole bunch of things in that particular conversation. So to clarify for myself, I would be happy to look at a report for this particular road and look at a report for this particular road. The other issue is huge. And so, for instance, while we heard that, you know, some of the roads have to become up, most of the roads, in my experience, will never meet municipal standards, the seasonal roads. And so that's why I'm saying this is a much, much bigger project. And I believe that today's agenda will also point out how busy that department is. But I would like to see something come back for this particular road, because it would actually guide us what we may do in the future for other roads. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Councillor Hayes?
Thank you. And through you, I would just like to echo Councillor Nishikawa's requests. But you also stated that you would like Director Becking to come back with a report for next month. I believe that department is working hard to finish off all of their construction projects. And I would like to not request it be done very quickly. I think it should be done as soon as possible, but not request staff, not put a deadline on them of next meeting, because we don't know what their schedules are, and that is respecting staff's time.
Good, thank you. Well, let's ask him. Director Becking, what's your comfort zone on this very specific ask of Glen Gordon Road for you to come back with an update, an analysis of what the cost would be to remediate that road?
As I indicated previously, Mr. Chairman, given our current workloads, a short timeline on this matter, regardless of whether it's the short term or the longer term bigger issue, quite frankly, is not realistic unless we change the schedule on other activities. I can scale down some of our other activities in order to accommodate this, but you know, committee is going to have to allow staff some latitude on other matters that are also pressing. So it boils down to a question of priority.
Okay, and so it does. To your words, I think that no one would want to get you from your assigned tasks and duties. So if we were to say a few months, 60 days to come back with this analysis, I'm trying to pin you down 60 days, 90 days. I would like to just get to a landing strip on this one. Is 90 days something that you could be comfortable with, which would be November? Let's say November.
Within the calendar year, we'll get it done.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Well, that would be good enough for me. Committee, showing of nodding of heads, perhaps just heads up that we're comfortable with that. That was a great discussion. Actually, it's going to serve us down that long road. No pun. Mr. Ricottone, I want to thank you, sir, for your time. I hope you believe and see in practice that the social public meeting, is for you, and this topic is on people's minds now. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Take care.
Okay.
Sorry.
Just specific to that road.
Right, just specific to that road. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Now I know we have, regarding Beaumaris, I know we have Delegate Liz Beatty, who is on the phone. Do we have her? You have a Liz? Okay, we have Liz. I have a text here from her saying she can't hear anything. So I need to let her know. Is that even possible? Okay, good. Excellent. Thank you. Okay, Chair Bridgman.
That's tomorrow. That's tomorrow.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I've already had a text, Chair Zavitz, from Ann Wygankowski, who is our next invited delegate. She's waiting to get in. So are we, I need to text her because I said it wouldn't be very long.
Thank you. So she's not in the waiting room any longer. We would have asked that for some reason. And so Cheryl Hollows has been, she's been communicating with everyone. And
has she? Okay. No, I just wanted to make sure.
Well, thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. Okay, so if we can get Liz Beatty on here first. And actually, while we are getting her on here, I wonder if Director Becking, if oh, okay. There we go. Liz. Okay, we're going to go with Liz Beatty first as it relates to the supplemental agenda piece. Liz Beatty is the president of the Fairhaven Island Association regarding comments to the parking bylaw enforcement at Beaumaris Road. Yeah, so Liz is connecting to audio. Wow. Liz, can you hear? Okay, listen, while we're waiting for Liz to get on, it says connecting to audio, but we're not getting the connection. I wonder if Director Becking, if you'd be so kind as to communicate your report regarding 5B as it relates to the Beaumaris Road parking bylaw enforcement, your report, and then we'll let Liz bring in her public comments because we need to move on. So if you'd be so kind, sir, does that work for you?
I can do so, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
You'll recall that Council adopted bylaw 2020-053 as it relates to parking. In the compilation of that bylaw, there was an omission with respect to the restrictions that are on Beaumaris Road, and further that the bylaw, as part of the enacting clause, repealed all previous bylaws that could potentially conflict. So as the situation currently exists, there is no legal authority to regulate parking on Beaumaris Road. With respect to the enforcement of the current the current signage that is on the roadway, I understand bylaw enforcement did in fact issue a number of citations with respect to infractions. Some of those tickets have been paid. Some of them have been disputed. And when the matter was clarified as to what the current situation is, any prosecutions that were currently underway were withdrawn. And anyone who has been received a ticket, if they have not already paid it, should not do so. For those individuals who have paid their fines, they can apply for a reimbursement or a refund, is my understanding. And some of those have already been processed. So that describes the current situation. With respect to the longer term, there are some broader policy issues that committee and council are going to have to come to grips with. And so to that end, staff will be bringing forward a more fulsome report to committee and council in October, I believe committee, that will set out a strategy to address the thing in the longer term. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'll try and answer any questions.
Good. Thank you, sir, for that. Thank you for your report. I see Liz. Liz, can you hear us now? Can we hear you, Liz? Oh, Liz, you're muted.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead. Welcome. Welcome.
Okay, thank you. Sorry,
you may not have heard this. Director Becking, I let him, present his report, which you would have seen on the agenda. And so you could then speak to that, okay?
I appreciate that. Apologies for the delay. The phone in didn't work. Good morning, everyone. As mentioned, I'm president of Fairhaven Islander Association, and I'm just checking in today on these revelations about the parking in Beaumaris. Appreciate the town acknowledging their mistake. It has been a massive inconvenience and waste of time for many, including a lot of you councillors. And we've tried to inform those ticketed who need to be compensated. So just thinking ahead to what's next, I just have 3 quick comments. Number 1, we feel strongly, please do not follow the report recommendation on this error, suggesting an amendment to the bylaw to make enforcement legal. If you were arguing status quo on mistaken enforcement until a full study of traffic, the same should apply here. So do nothing, remove the signs until that study. But voting on an amendment wouldn't make any sense and would really damage goodwill. Second thought, about these studies on Beaumaris walkers and Islander parking access in general. It would be wonderful to try and make this process more transparent for all stakeholders, build goodwill. So post on your site the parameters of each study, the big questions to be answered, sources, and give a portal for stakeholder feedback. Instead of putting stakeholders like us on our heels, responding to something already completed without consultation. And that means like ongoing consultation, not just delegations. So for example, I'd request that the report unearths original complaints that triggered to our parking in the first place and whatever public consultation was there. But I think this would break the cycle of negative communication and build that spirit of collaboration that we're all talking about. Finally, I get why the council seems to conflate the walker situation with Beaumaris, but honestly, it doesn't really make much sense because they are completely different. And I get it, you're struggling to treat both fairly, but fair doesn't necessarily mean the same. Fairness comes from developing a consistent, well thought out lens of planning principles, values for islanders, then assessing each unique situation through that lens. So, we're working on something similar from my region down in Caledon's master plan So for example, figure out your position on support of public-private properties, you know, a discernment between tourist access and ratepayer access, how you're going to support public-private, your principle on supporting public-private parking and boat access for legacy islanders. So really, right now, you don't have that lens. So really, how would you know what's fair for each completely different circumstance? Again, I think fair does not mean the same. It means being judged to the same fair framework and finding the right situation-specific solution based on that framework. Which brings us back to the old refrain, perhaps halt all enforcement until you have that broader planning lens in place. And again, we would love to collaborate with you on that next big step of planning for islanders. So that's it for me. Thanks to everyone so much for your time and your service.
Okay, Liz, thank you, and great comments. Certainly, not a public apology, but I certainly do feel remorse, if you will, in the knowledge that over those last 4 months of the 2021 summer season, you folks were subject to some scrutiny, which is really putting it mildly. And thank you for coming forward and trying to work with this township and with this rather prickly issue. I do note on Ken Becking's report, page 2 of 3, following a variety of delegations by island residents on this issue, committee directed staff to report on the process to develop public and private alternatives for longer term, as well as interim solutions for the Beaumaris and Marina roads. So a pretty all-encompassing statement. I wonder, Ken, if I might, not to put you on the spot, sir, I know you're working towards that October deadline for that report to come back. Given Liz's comments here representing one cottager group, are you comfortable? Not a loaded question, please. Just, are you comfortable that this initial report that you'll come back with in October has identified and dealt with and addressed at least some, if not all, of what Liz has brought forward?
It will. I think it will set out the intentions with respect to how to address the issue and the process that staff will propose to do so. Ultimately, the decision is up to you and members of committee and council as to what you would like staff to do in terms of how to address these issues, and we'll take direction from you accordingly.
Good, thank you. I'll let the CAO have a comment, but I just want to, just for the record, how are we currently handling this Beaumaris parking situation now that we've essentially stepped down as a township from the generation of tickets and have for part of August? Are we on record as there's a particular process in place, or there isn't? Are we simply not ticketing? Signs remain, I understand. I don't think the signs have been removed. So is there a commentary on that? Either our bylaw enforcement officer or you, Ken?
My understanding is that enforcement activities are being held in abeyance at the present time.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So thank you, sir, for that. Frank, we'll give you, Frank, first thought, and then Councillor Roberts. Go ahead, gentlemen.
Thank you, Chair. Once again, I have a question for staff, just for my clarification. I'm trying to understand the report, and was it direction from council that this road be put in the no parking bylaw or parking control, and it was omitted in there, as I've read, a schedule was carried forward that did not include it. So was it at council's direction, or was it never directed by council and somehow it's just a whole mix up? I'm just trying to understand whether.
Go ahead, Ken.
Because I think you're yeah, okay. I think that's the question is, if we directed something and it didn't happen, then I guess we look at correcting it. But if we never directed in the first place, then I guess that's another issue.
Ken, can you speak to that?
Yes. Through you, Mr. Chairman, the there was no direction of committee or council with respect to include or not include. When the current bylaw was developed, we attempted to bring forward all of the existing regulations that were in place prior. The regulations as it relates to Beaumaris did not get included, did not get brought forward. So.
Supplementary, so was it in the previous bylaw, was there no parking on Beaumaris? And then that just didn't get carried forward?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
I see. So this was a continuation of a policy that because the bylaw had a technical glitch, it can no longer be enforced. This was not a new no parking restriction.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor is correct.
Okay, good, thank you. Councillor Roberts?
Okay, so I just want to make it perfectly clear here. The parking signs are staying up in Beaumaris. No one should park in those areas. It was, they put it up there for a safety concern, specifically when there was a fire in October. So we are not ticketing. That's the only thing that has changed. So that I want to make that very, very clear.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to let the CAO have a comment here. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to circle back to Ms. Beatty's comments along with Mr. Becking's comments to remind committee that of the solutions that we spoke about that will be and the related process that will be articulated in the report next month. You'll recall that we talked about updates to the official plan in terms of providing permissive policies relating to the establishment of waterfront landings, additional parking areas associated with marinas. So there is a process. There will be public meetings. There will be opportunity for input on those policies as part of our ongoing official plan update project. So there is an opportunity for the delegate and her association to provide commentary thereon. You'll also recall that we're contemplating our transportation master plan next year. There will also be an associated public consultation process with that project as well. So there'll be plenty of opportunities for input and consultation from both island and mainland associations and residents alike. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Okay, so I think to wrap this up again, I thank the Fairhaven folks for coming forward. Thank you, Ken, for the report. And just to clarify yet again, there is no ticketing of vehicles on Beaumaris Road. End of discussion at this point in time. Again, sensitive to this October report, which will be a much more, using the word fulsome a bit today. We're looking forward to that. So thank you for that. And again, thank you, Liz. Okay, so I'm going to move on here now. And so we do have our third and last delegate, item 4B, Ann Wiganowski, applicant to attend item 6B, license agreement application, roll number 4-10-040. Do we have Ann in the? Okay, Ann is here. And so I'm going to actually ask Ann to, there she is. Welcome, Ann. Can you hear us? Okay, you're muted.
How's that?
Okay, great. Thank you. Welcome. Good morning.
Good morning.
So go ahead.
Okay, so I'm on the agenda with an application for a license agreement. So I just wanted to give a bit of background. When we rebuilt our property in 2011, 2012, we created an upper parking area for winter parking and for trucks and so on to turn in, because we're really at the dead end of the seasonal road. And the road is not maintained by the township. We're both seniors in our mid-60s and mid-70s, and we're retired at this property full-time. The property has a very steep incline going down the hill to the house. And when the driveway ices up, you cannot drive up and down during the winter months. So we use an ATV with some chains on the tires to go up to the upper parking area. And it's pretty much impossible to park anywhere else in the winter. So late fall 2020, we put up a couple of those car tents from Canadian Tire to shelter the cars from the snow in the winter months, so that when we have to go to the dentist or doctor, we don't have to spend half an hour as seniors cleaning snow off the car to get into it. We do have one neighbor that has kind of a history of harassment who immediately submitted a complaint to the township about the tents. And we talked to the other neighbors, and none of the other neighbors had any objection, and they were quite shocked that anyone would complain about it. As we went through the complaint, Ms. Miners made the assertion in an email that the tents were largely on the road allowance, which I took great exception to because we were very careful putting them up that they would not be on the road allowance. And so we did take them down in the spring as we promised the township, but we left in a couple of the pegs to resolve the dispute about where the tents were located. And we took out the other pegs in case, the recycling truck or something used the area to do their turnaround. We didn't want them to, damage their tires. So on June 22nd, I met with Councillor Bridgman and Mr. Becking from Public Works. And I showed them where the tents were located, and Mr. Becking assessed where the road allowance was. And we agreed that the tents were not located on the road allowance. And we also used the hydro poles in making this assessment. And I noticed in the presentation or the materials that there's an assertion that we would put the tents under the hydro lines, which as a continuity planner and emergency manager and somebody that assesses risks surprised me greatly, because we were very careful that we were parallel to those lines and not under them, because those are metal framed tents. So it also says that we should put the tents 25 feet away from the road allowance on our lot, which is completely impossible because of the steep grade. And so the recommended solution that Mr. Becking and Councillor Bridgman and I discussed was the application for the license agreement, and that the tents be placed as far from the travel portion of the road as possible due to the grade of the hill and the way that the lot is. And I agreed to complete that process. So in good faith, I invested in having a property survey done at my own expense, and submitted also a diagram showing the area beside the road allowance that I don't see included in the package, paid the license fee, and submitted that on July 13th. So I've spent approximately $6,500 or a bit more. And I thought that we had an agreement with the township that worked to support us as seniors. And now we have a different result, which basically says I can continue to park where we parked since 2011 without, after having to, spent $6,500. And I don't know where the assumption was made that I would put the tents under the hydro lines, and nobody's been back to discuss the placement of the tents with me, right? That they're parallel to the road, not perpendicular to the road allowance, which would place them under the hydro lines if we did it that way. So, I'm not, I'm wondering what happened here. Nobody's communicated with me. All of a sudden, I've gone through the process that the township requested I go through. And here we are kind of going in circles again. So basically I'm, asking for your support to put the tents back where they were, not under the hydro lines, as far away from the road allowance as possible. So.
Good. Okay, and thank you. Listen, that's great. And I think let's set about getting a resolution here today to not some, but all of your questions. Okay, so if you just want to hang on, what I'd like to do is invite our Township Chriselle Story Land and Agreements Coordinator to actually present her report. And then I would like to hear from both councillors Bridgman and certainly Director Becking as they attended. That's very, very important to me, and I know to others. And yes, Director David Pink as well. So we have a little bit to get through here. So Chriselle, with that, I'm going to give you the floor and invite you to present this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, committee. As the applicant mentioned, we have received an application for a license agreement for the encroachment of a parking area and parking structures to be situated partially on a portion of a township road allowance. Based on staff comments, it is recommended that tentative approval be given for the existing parking area, subject to the conditions as noted in the staff report. The applicant is here today to answer any questions. So with that being said, I will turn it back to the chair.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So Councillor or Committee Member Bridgman, would you have a comment here that could provide some help to us?
Yes, and thank you, Chair Zavitz. We did meet that day, and I have to tell you that the peg that Anne left in the ground is I think we figured very minimally part of this is on our property, and we looked at the hydro lines, and it appeared that everything was fine. So that was the recommendation. And the put it somewhere else in your property doesn't work on this property. It is a steep slope down from there, and there's no way that Anne and her husband can do that in the winter. I mean, the land, it's impossible. But more than anything, I think I went away understanding that this agreement would solve her problem, and she's gone away spending $6,500, and now being told that you can have the license, but you can't have what you need, which is the tent. So I am also very confused because the tents, and to your point, Anne, they weren't perpendicular to the road. Anne and her husband made sure they were back as far as they could be off of the road on the one flat area, and it looked to me like it was about a 2-foot encroachment, maybe. It wasn't very much. So Director Becking, I know you were there. We had a nice chat. You may want to chime in on this right now, but I am really perturbed by this. So.
Okay, good. Thank you. And that's great narrative. I'm going to ask Cheryl Mortimer, our clerk, prior to Ken speaking. Go ahead, Cheryl.
Good morning. So with respect to license agreements, we typically would not ask the applicant to spend money on a survey until they receive tentative approval. So unfortunately, the applicant has spent money on the survey before any approvals have been received. Having said that, the comments with respect to the requirements for building of these structures the definitions lie within the zoning bylaw, which David could speak to. However, in addition to that, we had other staff attend site from the building department, and the chief building official has indicated that there are restrictions with regard to the location of these as they relate to the hydro poles or the hydro lines. So I can't speak specific to that, but the staff report is based on comments from not only the director of public works, but also the chief building official and the director of planning. So that is how this application report is presented. And we have to remember that this is a decision that's made by 10 people around the table. And so unfortunately, if the applicant was given the impression that this was going to proceed as a yes, unfortunately, there's been some confusion around that, and we will be moving forward with that today from around the committee table.
Good.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Cheryl. Okay, so Anne, hopefully you're with us so far and you're following through on this dialogue and listening in. I see you there. So I'm going to ask David Pink again, our Director Ken Becking. David, are you available to speak to this? I suppose an aggregate from your various groups under your control there, sir. Thank you. Go ahead. Welcome, David.
Thank you. Good morning, committee. Thank you, through you, the chair. I have not visited the property myself. I do not believe I've seen a survey. I was asked to comment on a license of occupation application for a parking structures in a parking area on a township road allowance.
If I might, David, would it help you, sir, if we put the survey up on the screen while you're present? Would that?
Certainly happy to look at that. My comments, again, as noted in the report, are that those would be considered structures under the zoning bylaw, just like those canvas boat ports we see, temporary floating docks that get installed during the summertime. These garage structures are considered structures under the zoning bylaw, and I would not be able to inform committee or council that it would comply with the zoning bylaw unless it's set back 25 feet from the road allowance. If the topography of the property poses hardships on the property owner, I believe we made them aware many months ago that they have the ability to apply for a minor variance to permit structures within the permitted setback. Again, it was the chief building official's site inspection that identified it was also under the hydro wires. I can't confirm or deny that. I have not visited the property, but I was made aware that was an issue, so I noted that as well.
Okay, thank you, David. That's the black and white of it all. I wonder if we could pop that survey up on the screen, please, if we could. And then, of course, I'll ask Councillors Hayes and Mayor Harding for commentary. Okay, so I wonder if Director Becking, do you have any additional insights you would share based on your experience having visited the location and just commentary for this committee?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, I think the facts of the matter have been shared with committee and accurately reflect certainly what I've seen and what was being proposed by the proponent.
Good, thank you. For clarification, as I understand it, while we're asking in this, resolution here, that it does not include temporary installation of parking structures on the road, on the township road allowance, and that the said proposed structures be placed on the applicant's property. Is that possible? Can this applicant place those tents on their property without the vehicles going down into the lake? Michelle, sorry, Ken.
The assertion from the applicant was that the structures were not on township property. At the time of my visit, they were not present, so I can't say one way or the other. They did indicate, though, that the structures, when in place, typically are placed parallel to the edge of the road allowance rather than perpendicular to. That's what I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you. Chriselle, would you like to make a comment? Am I understanding? No? No comment? Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with the Director of Public Works. When the applicant submitted the application, she also indicated whereabouts the proposed structures would be situated that appeared to be parallel to the road. Nothing further at this time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Councillor Hayes and then the mayor.
Thank you, through you. I was wondering if we could get that survey picture back up and if somebody could indicate exactly where the parking is to take place and where the hydro lines are on the survey, because it was very difficult to read. And also just to verify that they are the last people on the road. So therefore, nobody would have to go by this in the winter time.
Okay, so good questions all. Would you be able to speak to that? Rochelle?
Thank you, Chair. So the parking area is situated at the top there. You can briefly see it along that, I'll use my mouse, this line here. So this is the parking area. And then these here are the overhead wires.
Okay. Councillor Hayes, does that sort of answer your query?
That does. I'm just looking at the traveled road in the shaded area. And it looks to be up to the, I guess, north. No, wait a minute. Yeah, it looks to be up to the top of the page. And it looks as if they have cleared out an area that is on the traveled road, but not in the developed traveled road. So it's on our concession, but it's not actually in the traveled area. Okay, thank you. Yes, that does help quite a bit.
Okay, good. Councillor Bridgman, I see you're shaking your head. Can you?
Oh, sorry. No, Councillor Hayes is quite right. This does not impede the road at all. These structures are parallel along that dotted line. There is one driveway beyond them. Councillor Hayes, I think that was your other question. So these were parallel, not perpendicular. And I see the overhead wires are, I don't know what the rules are for that. I think for me, it was just the not understanding that you had to wait for the approval to do all of this. So I think that's part of where the issue is here. But I think for me, we have a couple here that really needs this, have a property that doesn't work. And I understand you can go for a variance. It's just, I can see the frustration from our constituents' end. Maybe that's what I'm trying to say too.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. Mayor Harding?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. What I've heard is this is a seasonal road. I'm assuming, or can I assume, let me ask a question, it joins one final lot, as I've heard from Councillor Bridgman, beyond the Wagowski's property. Do they use this in the winter time or not? If they don't, I assume the Wagowski's are the ones who actually plow the road in the winter time. If the neighbor doesn't use the property, if the neighbor was to give their support, and if the Wagowski's are the ones who actually plow the road, allow the structures to go on the road from December till June or April, because no one else is using it. It really becomes their private road, would be my kind of recommendation at the end of the day, assuming the neighbors don't have an issue. And I'll also ask a question of our building department, because my understanding is as long as you could park a trailer underneath the road allowance or underneath the hydro wires. So if these temporary shelters actually had wheels on them, they would be legal to be parked underneath the hydro line. And maybe I'll get building department to answer that question. And Mrs. Wangowski, you'll see where I'm going with that question or that commentary.
Okay, I wonder if I could, first of all, ask Anne for clarity. To the mayor's question, is that property beyond you on that road utilized in the winter?
They do come up sometimes. We all pay on the road to have the road plowed properly and to keep it clear of snow. Prior to the pandemic, we might see the neighbors we're at the point where you see the top of our driveway, it actually kind of branches into two other driveways. The one that is the furthest along they go away for the entire winter. And the ones that are directly beside us, who like to harass us, if I can be polite about it, they usually come up maybe once every month or every 2 months, except during the pandemic, of course, they've been up more regularly because they can't go out of the country very easily.
Okay, good, thank you. I wonder then if I could ask Director Becking to respond to the mayor's question regarding the hydro line temporary structure piece. Or is that David? Sorry, I'm sorry. David?
That question is for the building department, Mr. Chairman. I'm not.
Good, thank you. Sorry, David?
Through you, Chair. I'm not familiar with all provisions of the Ontario Building Code with respect to hydro wires, but what I can tell you is the zoning bylaw would only permit a travel trailer on the property if it's for the purposes of storage, and it would have to require comply with all required yards, all setbacks. And again, I think the survey is very clear. Clearly, those parking structures are under the hydro wire and would encroach and are not 25 feet onto the property. I'm sorry, I don't know. Appreciate the concerns of the property owner, but I can't advise you that it would comply with the zoning bylaw unless it was 25 feet from that lot.
Okay, thank you. So Councillor Jagowitz.
Thank you, Chair. If I understand it correctly, staff has recommended alternative 1, which will grant the applicant a lease over and allow them to park their cars in that location. That's my understanding of the application. What's at issue here is whether the temporary structures can be there. And the Director of Planning has indicated that they don't meet our bylaws for the 25-foot setback and the reasons, and that they should go through a minor variance. So my question is, what I'd like to do is I'd like to look at what trouble we would get into if we have modified alternative 1 to allow the temporary structures and the cars there. Would that mean then we're entering into something that's violating our own zoning bylaw, or the fact that we would grant a license to use that, would that solve the issue? Because I think that's probably, under the circumstances, these are temporary structures, they're only there for a period in the winter. And I'd like to see whether we could pursue that course.
With staff, who on staff would like to speak to that? David? I think you've already been very clear on the township position, but.
Well, Mr. Chair, I'm talking about, he was stating it without the agreement to use. If we grant them a license to use our property, does that not solve the problem? That's my question. Not is the part of the structure in violation of the 25-foot setback.
I may have to, through you, the chair, may have to investigate. What I can say is that public uses by a public authority are not subject to the zoning bylaw. So the township could erect parking structures on township lands, and you may not be subject to your own zoning bylaws. With that said, staff's advice is always to adhere to your own policies and bylaws as best possible in order to send the best message to the community. What I would not be able to answer off the top of my head is if council were to approve of a structure on a municipal property that does not comply with their own zoning bylaws, that's not a public use. I don't know if that's a way to circumvent the zoning bylaw. My only advice I could really give to council or committee at this time is I think you want to give careful consideration to allowing, albeit temporary, and I again appreciate the concerns of the property owner and the difficulties they face. I think council should be careful about encouraging ways to circumvent the zoning bylaw and permitting that. I think they're going to send a message to the community that you may wish to be careful of. So,
okay, David, thank you very much for that insight. I'm going to ask Councillor Edwards, and then Councillor Kelly will wrap this up.
Thank you very much. When I was looking at the sketch sheet you had up there and that, the area that is over the property line where the coordinates are, is that where they are? Like you said, they're not on the township property. Is that right? So that they're on the applicant's property?
Who can speak to that? Michelle?
Thank you, Chair. So it would appear that the structures would be situated partially on the township road allowance and then partially on the applicant's property. Thank you.
Okay, so then we should give them a lease agreement as long as they're not interfering with with the hydro lines. It's very simple. If they were on their property completely, then we could give them a minor variance with 0 lot line. Now, but if they are encroaching on the thing, then we'd have to give them a leasing agreement. It's very simple, really, in that. So if it's determined they're on the road allowance, then they have a lease agreement. If they're not on the road allowance, it says there would be no annual fee if it's for parking only. So, I think that clarifies it for me. What I'm asking is if they are on the applicant's property completely, even with a 0 lot line, and they're not interfering with a hydro, that can be done with a minor variance rather than a lease agreement. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, Councillor Kelly, committee member Kelly.
Thank you, and through you, I think I've heard a couple of things from, I think it was Councillor Jaglowitz and Mayor Harding, that we're getting awful close here. We got to figure out how to make this a little bit easier, I think, than it is right now. If you ever spend any time in the province of Quebec in the winter, there's hundreds of thousands of these things. They have a nickname for them. I can't remember what they are. They're kind of like lawn ornaments. They're regulated by municipality, not by the province. I think they're actually done even smaller than that by borough. And they're built right to the lot line or right to the sidewalk. They can't impede either the sidewalk or the roadway. I don't believe you're allowed to make your own out of tarps and bungee cords. I think they have to have a certain look, but there are literally every house in a lot of these places, right in downtown Montreal, has one of these parked at the end of the road. They're done by license. They can't go up before, I think it's November the 15th. They have to be down before April the 1st, if I'm not mistaken. And it just kind of flows. You buy a license for $50, you put your tent up, you park your car. It's a reality of the climate. I don't think our climate's a heck of a lot different than theirs. And I think, we need to find a way to make this easier rather than more difficult, temporary, seasonal, and not destructive in the sense that you can't build it on the side of the road. You have to have it actually off the roadway.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Councillor Jaglowitz, last word, and then we'll move on. I know. Go ahead, Frank. You're muted.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. The Director of Planning and the rest of his title indicated that we don't want to be circumventing our bylaws, but yet a minor not a minor amendment, but a minor variance is just another way of circumventing my bylaws. So what I'm suggesting is that we do it all by a license agreement, if that's possible. So maybe this has to be deferred for staff to come back with a way to do this and get this done the easiest way possible. That would be my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think last word, a couple of things that I've not seen before as these things come before us, and these are very tricky to me, and they always have been my 3 years. This no annual fee be required as the license agreement is for parking only. Yeah, but parking, if it's a parking area, we're not going to charge for this license agreement, which I find interesting because we just had a big debacle on Moon River Road, and the guy parked a raft in the water and nailed it to our property on our property. he's parked something. So I'm really interested in, I think the notion of a deferment for 30 days, if that's what it is, to understand, I need to understand that better than I certainly do. And I do know that I do have a resolution here in front of me, which does include which does not include the temporary installation of parking structures. So I think with the questions are being asked, Cheryl's got a comment. Thank you.
I can clarify with respect to the fee. When there is a structure, an encroachment like a septic system, a building, a dock, etc., then that would imply that there is a fee. When it's just an entranceway to a property or a parking area where there's no structures, that is when we've been imposing no fee. Hope that clarifies.
Well, I think, yeah, thank you. And thank you for that, Cheryl. I think when we're contemplating parking for islanders around this township and Muskoka Lakes, and to find out that there is free parking, there is free use of our township lands. I'd like to understand that better. I really would, because that confuses me, and I think it's going to confuse the general public. So, I mean, I guess that's been a rule for years and years, that we don't charge people to park on accesses to water or on our road allowances. I don't think it's very well known. That's for sure. So I'm going to say, I'll let Councillor Edwards have a last word, then I'm just going to ask your thoughts.
Thank you very much. I don't want to see this, and that actually got deferred. We have 30 days for thinking time, because it has to come before council. We could move it on to council. If the applicant can prove that it's not on their not on the road allowance, but on their property, and that they get a license agreement without paying for it. If it's on it, then they pay for it. It's quite simple, as long as they're not interfering with the hydro lines. And as far as roads and road allowances, we have road allowances that somewhere there's ditches and everything else like that you can't park. So this is completely different than islander parking, and that I don't want to get that confused. But thank you very much. But I'd be pleased to move this forward for the applicant. They've waited long enough. Thank you.
Good thought. And the rest of committee feel that way? I can read this. I can read this motion. There's a thumbs up. Shake.
Without the structures.
Without, I would imagine, without any changes, it's going to go to council next month, and that where we could be discussing it once again, as per committee member Edwards. I don't think there's any call to action as a result of. We have people looking at each other here, so we're just going to take 1 second to understand that we have this right.
That resolution does not include the structures.
That's right. So it does not, yeah, and as everyone can see on the staff recommendation, the resolution does not include the proposed temporary installation of parking structures. So you would be voting in support of that piece. And then we haven't really asked staff to go away and come back with any other thoughts on it in the next 30 days when it comes to council, but that's what we're faced with. Councillor Hayes.
Yeah, I don't feel the issue is the parking, because they've been parking there for years.
Right.
I think the issue is putting up a structure so that they don't have to clean their car off every time. And I think if we move this forward to council without addressing that, I don't think that we've actually looked at the ask of the taxpayer. And the parking is not the issue. The structure is. So if it means that we're going to have to get a deferral at this time and move it to October, then that's fine. I would do that and get more information. I'm not comfortable with moving this to council, knowing that there are changes that we want in it.
Okay, so changes that we want in it, to your words. Would you as a group entertain the inclusion of these structures on this property?
With caution about this, the hydro.
Yeah, with caution of the so you know what, it seems to me that we need this to be cleaned up. I personally, I think it needs to be cleaned up. From what I'm seeing some confusion. We want to get it right. We certainly want to get it right for Anne. to whatever that end is. And so I'm going to ask here and now if you, as a group, would feel most comfortable with a deferment for 30 days on this topic, so that we can, I suppose, as staff, come back with more clarity on the inclusion of these parking structures, because that seems to be where everybody's hung up. Am I right? Am I looking? Some shaking. Okay, so Frank Jagger, actually, you know what? If I might include Cheryl in this discussion, the clerk. Thank you.
So our staff report outlines the requirements for zoning and for the overhead hydro lines. So we would have to, I believe, somebody on staff from the building or the bylaw or planning, under the planning division, go out and meet on site to determine where specifically the applicant wants to place the tents, to see if they are going to be in that zone that would impact the hydro lines, because we would not want them to be put in there that would interfere with that. I think that's a safety issue, and that's what I would be most concerned with. So as far as the setbacks, I mean, we've already said the alternatives are, you know, a minor variance, or put them on your property, get a minor variance, or allow them to be on township property, and they won't be complying with the zoning bylaw. So I think that staff need to go on site and see where specifically that they will be situated, and see if the solution can be come to see how to move this forward. And I would suggest that or ask that David concur with that, or as a go forward option, come back in 30 days.
Okay, thank you, Cheryl. David, could you speak to that before we ask the other two delegates with their members with their hands up?
Through you, certainly, you know, I'm happy if it's committee's prerogative if you wish to defer. Certainly staff, a number of staff can attend and review more precisely the location of the hydro wire and the proposed or existing structures. But again, I think staff's position is fairly clear. I think one thing we do know is that the parking structures are not located 25 feet onto the subject property owner's property. And I don't believe staff's going to be able to prepare a report for you that indicates we should circumvent the zoning bylaw as laid out in the report and as laid out to the applicant many months ago. The correct process is to apply for a minor variance to permit those structures within permitted setbacks. So I don't think you're going to find a different recommendation or a different finding. But again, happy to visit the site and see if we can come up with a different location.
Okay, good. Thank you, David. Mayor, I'll give you the last word, and then.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I guess from a deferral of this, if we bring this back to committee a month from now, we're talking October, nothing's going to happen until November if we're lucky. If we have to go back to a minor variance come November, at that point, we won't even get on a docket till March. My recommendation is to approve it as circulated today, which allow them to park their cars. We need to work on a way and have staff potentially come up with recommendations on how they can utilize shelters or not. That can come directly to council. I would approve this, but I would also suggest that this is automatically pulled as a separate item to be voted on and discussed at council. Again, when it comes to council 30 days from now, we could defer it again or make another recommendation. But to keep this process moving forward, at minimum, Ms. Moskowski, you would be allowed to park your cars on the side of the roadway. We may or may not be able to find a solution for you to have a tent, but at minimum, you'd be able to park your cars on the side of the roadway. That's the fundamental, and I think you'd probably choose that versus nothing at any point going forward. So my recommendation again is to move this forward today and automatically pull it to be discussed separately next month.
Okay, good. Thank you. Before I ask the final two, Cheryl, I would say to automatically pull, what is that? What sets that? Right, so we'll simply ask a committee member to do that at next meeting. Okay, in terms of the minutes, thank you. So Councillor Edwards and then Councillor Jaglowitz and I'll read this resolution.
Okay, first of all, I agree with the mayor. It should go forward. And if I'm looking at this, it says if the application is approved, the details of the draft lease agreement would include. And the third one says encroachment of an existing parking area and proposed parking structures during the winter months on the township road allowance known as Hemlock Point Road. So what we're saying is if we approve this, and if it's not in the way of the hydro wires, they get their lease. And that, if I'm not reading it right, maybe everybody else has read it a different way. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jagowitz?
Yes, I agree. It should go forward also. And I would only add to it that I would, and possibly other councillors would, encourage staff to try to find a way to deal with the structures, if there is one. And they come forward to council to be dealt with.
Good, thank you. I'm just going to ask Cheryl for the final word.
Hi again. The recommendation in the staff report recommends for the parking area, and the approval does not include these temporary structures, for clarity.
Good, thank you. So my sense is we're getting some notion here that I would read this resolution to keep this thing moving, and then it would be we would ask of a councillor to pull this at the minutes upon review in October and deal with it at that time. So I would look to you all. I see a sort of a nodding of heads. Are we sort of in agreement that that's a way forward? It seems that we have. Moved by Mayor Harding, seconded by Councillor Bridgman. Be it resolved that the General Finance Committee recommend to Council that the application for a license agreement to maintain an existing parking area situated on a portion of Township Road allowance known as Hemlock Point Road, lying between lots 18 and 19, Concession 5, Medora, Wiganowski, Rule 4-10-040, be approved in accordance with Township Council Policy C-LS-07. Subject to the following conditions: that this approval does not include the proposed temporary installation of parking structures on the Township Road allowance during the winter months, and that said proposed structures be placed on the applicant's property in compliance with Township Zoning Bylaw 2014-14, that a draft survey be prepared and provided to the Township for review prior to registration, that no annual fee be required as the license agreement is for a parking area, and that once the above conditions have been fulfilled, the bylaw be passed at a future council meeting to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute any documents required for the license agreement. All those in favor? Okay, Cheryl? Now Councillor Nishikawa didn't.
She did. I saw her. Yeah.
Okay, she's voting yes. Okay, good, thank you. Okay, and so thank you for coming forward. Oh, Councillor Bridgman has her, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Zavitz. Could I ask that that Anne be included in be told when people are going out, and me too, so that we could be there when the review is going on? That Anne gets a chance to see exactly what the measurements are, et cetera, and she can point out everything.
I'll let Cheryl speak to that. Thank you.
Yes, we will need the applicant to be present to identify where the proposed locations would be.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, good. Thank you. Anne, we'll see you again. Okay, thank you very much, Anne. Thank you for your time. Okay, committee, it's 10:45. How about we take a 10-minute break? So we'll see you back here at 5 to 11. And we'll begin with item 5A, the Township Office Space Optimization Study Results with our Director of Public Works. Thanks. See you in 10.
It worked for me.
Okay, good. Thank you and welcome back. Is everyone here? We're just waiting. Okay, Derek's here. Have we got enough folks here? Okay, all members are present. Thank you. I'm going to call on our Director of Public Works, Ken Becking, item 5A on our reports today on our agenda, a report from Ken on the Township Office Space Optimization Study results. So Ken, you've got the floor. Go ahead. We Ken's muted.
We've unmuted a few times.
I'd like to ask some of you.
Okay, welcome, Ken. You there? You can hear us, okay?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Oh, okay.
We're looking for your 5A report on Township Office Space Optimization Study results. You've got the floor, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, committee will recall that staff presented a presentation to you back in March where we talked about the difference between core infrastructure and non-core infrastructure. The Township Hall falls under the heading of non-core asset. We made the connection between the asset, council's decisions with respect to level of service, and how that all translates into cost. You'll also recall that we presented a report to you some time ago where we identified some challenges that we are currently facing with respect to Town Hall and the accommodation of staff within the facility. The report in front of you identifies the results of analyses that have been undertaken. We retain the services of Plus VG, who is a group of architects, to review the existing facility. The general conclusion of that study is that that there are some both structural and functional deficiencies with the building, which, if they can be overcome, can be overcome at significant cost. Their overall recommendation is that council consider significant either reconstruction or construction of a new facility. They have identified a temporary solution that will buy us 5 to 10 years of remaining life in the current facility. Of course, this comes at a significant cost, as the report indicates, somewhere between $2 and $3 million as a minimum. The report was reviewed by the senior staff, and we took what I will call a very pragmatic approach to the situation. And we're recommending that committee and council take a very minimalist approach to extend the life of the existing facility at least for the next 5 years. That will give committee and council sufficient time to take stock of not only the situation with respect to this facility, and more broadly, the Port Carling campus, what we're referring to as the Port Carling campus, which includes this facility, the Memorial Community Center next door, as well as the arena, which of course then draws into question or takes into consideration the results of the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, as well as the Fire Master Plan, which is about to be reinitiated. The overall staff recommendation at this time is that staff develop a flexible remote work policy that will take some of the pressure for space off in the short term, that we proceed to make modifications to the Port Carling Fire Hall and move the fire administration operations to that location. Given the restructuring that has taken place with respect to the planning and building divisions, in order to make it possible to generate the benefits from that restructuring, staff are recommending that the planning department move to the lower level of the building, and with some relatively minor modifications, occupy the space that is currently occupied by Public Works and the fire admin operations, and that Public Works move up, and that will provide both groups with space that is commensurate with their current needs and the needs that we can identify for at least the reasonably foreseeable future. And that there will be some relatively minor physical modifications to the building in order to accommodate the space that is currently required. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it over to you, and you can, if there are any questions, I'll attempt to answer them.
Good, thank you. Excellent report, and most interesting as we ponder the future of this corporation. I don't see any hands. Committee members, there's Councillor Jagowitz. Go ahead, sir. Frank, go ahead.
He can't unmute himself.
You can't unmute yourself? Okay, we'll let Frank,
Thank you. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Hello?
We hear you.
You hear me? Okay. The host wasn't allowing me to be unmuted at that point. Thank you. I have a general question, and then I have some specific ones. What I don't see in this plan is what the long-term 20-year plan is for this. And I would have thought that that would have been part of the study. What I see here is spending $2 million for a very, very short-term plan to move a few people around. It doesn't address most of the downsides that were in the report. In other words, it is a significant cost to address the very short period of time. It doesn't adequately address the long-term needs, and it doesn't deal with the ongoing state of good repair of the existing building. And so I'm just wondering why before we make this step, why we haven't looked at what the long-term plan is for, or whether or not this should be further pared down and possibly move the fire department as indicated, and some minor renovations until we have an overall plan as to whether or not we may not even utilize this building in the future. So I just wanted to get an answer why the long-term plan wasn't looked at in detail.
Okay, so prior to Ken letting you respond, and or whomever else might want to, as I do read the motion in front of us today, this, in actual fact, what this committee is considering today is very purely and simply, I guess, to accept the report as it is, and that staff be authorized to retain the services of an architect to design retrofits. So very specifically, the fire piece, and get those folks relocated. And then finally, that we would extend the services of Plus VG Architects to work with us on a future. So I'm going to let Derek speak up. CAO.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. In answer to Councillor Jaglowicz's question, Councillor Jaglowicz, that study made certain recommendations. Staff took a closer look at it and took more of a pragmatic view. We didn't agree that $2 to $3 million to buy 5 to 10 years was a prudent investment. So to your point, the modifications, if you will, that staff are suggesting will come in significantly less. But Director Becking also spoke to the need for a remote work policy, which would assist in sort of defraying time, if you will, or buying time. But at the same time, staff are saying we need to start saving for a future redevelopment or building at some point in some place. We're also saying that, to your point about the bigger, longer term picture, that we need the information from the results of the recreation master plan to assist us in understanding what a Port Carling campus would look like. So we are taking the view of the longer term, and we're saying to council, we need to prepare for that now. These minor changes that staff are suggesting or recommending at this point will buy us a bit of time, but we need to start looking at that longer term picture now. Thank you.
Supplementary.
Thank you, Chair.
Supplementary.
Councillor Jaglowic.
Yeah, so I may have misread the report there, and I appreciate. I was looking at the cost estimate, so maybe you could tell me if we approve this alternative plan, what type of costs are we approving? I mistakenly thought we were approving the option one for $2 million. So what is the total cost of what you're asking us to prove at this stage?
CAO.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Councillor Jaglowic, I believe it's outlined in the financial section, but perhaps Mr. Becking can take us through that. Thank you.
Okay, Ken, go ahead, please, if you could. Ken,
Hello, can you hear me?
Okay, yes,
can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'll draw committee's attention to the financial section of the report. With respect to the modifications to the fire hall, there is monies in the 2021 capital budget to accommodate those expenditures. We anticipated this as a potential outcome. The amount provided is $100,000. And with respect to the township office, we've estimated that somewhere between $60,000 and $70,000 should be more than adequate to address the relatively minor modifications that will be required and some additional furniture and the like. I would suggest to you that that's a fairly hefty estimate and that we should be able to come in below it.
So I apologize. So you're only asking for under 200,000. Thank you, Ollie. I think that's a good plan. Thank you.
With respect, Mr. Chairman, the $100,000, as I indicated, is already in the approved capital budget. So the ask of you is actually for the $60,000 to $70,000.
Right. So we're not accepting the consultant's report. We're going to go on to look at the longer term approach, and I agree with that. Thank you.
Good, thank you very much. Councilor Nishikawa, go ahead.
Thank you. I think my question more was about the hiring of the architect and where, so my memory of previous years on council was that we'd looked at this a number of times, and I'm just wondering if I find it interesting, because if we were going to engage with a brand new architect, for instance, and this township has historically used one, I don't have a preference one way or another, other than costs. So sometimes it's much easier for the architect that's worked on the building for many, many years to actually follow through with things. And that's where I was trying to be cognizant of, you know, those startup drawings, I will just say, can be very, very costly. And that's all I wanted to have an understanding of, where, for instance, the other plans were and how they would be incorporated, so that we weren't spending a lot of thousands in architectural designs.
Okay, the CAO would like to chime in on that. Thank you.
I just wanted to clarify a couple of things. So as it relates to the engagement for this study, there was a competitive process, and the firm that Mr. Becking mentioned were the successful bidders. And so they have completed what we asked them to do, which was take a really close look at our building. And as it relates to the architect that designed the Port Carling Fire Hall, that is who Mr. Becking is proposing to engage for that assignment because of their history with that facility. So a little bit more of a streamlined approach, if you will. Thank you.
Good, thank you. And hopefully that answers your question, committee member Nishikawa. Okay, good. Okay, anyone else? Any other thoughts, comments? Okay, well, given that, I'm going to read this motion moved by Councillor Bridgman, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Be it resolved that the General Finance Committee recommend the Township Council to approve the alternative approach as outlined in report number PW-2021-020 respecting space optimization in the Township office. And that staff be authorized to retain the services of Ron Odd, architect, to design retrofits to the Port Carling Fire Hall in order to accommodate the relocation of the fire administration operations. And that once the retrofits to the Port Carling Fire Hall have been completed, the fire administration operations be relocated on a permanent basis from the Township office to the Port Carling Fire Hall. And finally, that staff are authorized to extend the services of Plus VG architects to prepare the design, contract documents, and cost estimates as needed to inform the 2022 capital budget, respecting improvements to achieve space optimization in the Township office. All those in favor? Good, thank you. Carried. Thank you, committee. Okay, Director Becking, you're up again. Item 5C, it's a report from yourself on the draft Township road system design standards. Thank you, sir. Go ahead. Ken, you're muted. Ken, you're muted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me now?
We can. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. To the best of my research, the township has never adopted any formal design standards. And this has caused staff some difficulty, particularly as it relates to proposing work on the township's road system, beg your pardon, as well as evaluation of proposals with respect to same and preparing estimates for you. In response to that, staff have drafted a policy for your consideration. The policy is actually based on the district standards for their infrastructure, but has been adjusted to reflect the difference between the character and caliber of roads that they are responsible for versus those that the township is responsible for. The document has been circulated to you for your consideration and to open a discussion with respect to the concept of having standards and to get your feedback with respect to what is being proposed. I can tell you that in the course of developing these standards, not only have I looked at the national standards for roads through the Transportation Association of Canada, I've also looked at provincial standards as they may apply to municipal roadways. There is also a move afoot to adopt a more pared down set of standards with respect to low volume roads, where the needs of the road are more commensurate with what constitutes low volumes. Typically, that's referred to as or deemed to be in the order of 100 vehicles a day or less. So what you have before you is a relatively pared back version of what would be found elsewhere. In any event, as I say, my purpose this morning is to bring it before you and to start a discussion with you as it relates to this issue.
Thank you, sir. Just for clarification, a few of the committee members, the resolution that I have in front of me is simply to accept your draft township road system design standards and your request of us as this committee to provide documentation, rationale, if you will, input to you by October the 1st, 15 days hence, where you will then, according to the report, once we've provided those comments, staff will make any necessary amendments thereto and bring back a final draft for committee's consideration, presumably in a month or two, given the timing. So given all of that, Councillor Kelly, then Councillor Hayes.
Thank you, and through you. I like the report a lot, but given what we talked about earlier, I'm curious to know whether these design standards are intended to apply to roads previously known as seasonal roads.
Ken?
Mr. Chairman, the intent is that they would apply to municipal roads or roads that are under the jurisdiction and control of the township. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Councillor Kelly, do you have any?
It was a great non-answer.
I think, Mr. Chairman, as I indicated earlier, roads are typically either municipal roads or they're not. As I say, I'll have to leave it at that.
Okay, fair enough. Councillor Hayes and then Councillor Nishikawa.
Yes, through you. It's a very fulsome report. What direct effect does it have on any of our existing roads by setting that minimum standard? And is this going to affect any of our proposed construction for the next couple of years?
Good question, Ken.
Mr. Chairman, most of the township roads are required to be a minimum of 6 meters in width. That constitutes a minimum standard. Some of our roads, by virtue of the volumes of traffic that they carry, should be somewhat wider. I think I'm advocating in the rural areas, perhaps as much as a 3¼ meter lane width. So in totality, a ½ meter wider. There are also situations where shoulders, current standard or current practice, I won't say standard, current practice is to provide ½ meter shoulders. There may be instances where wider shoulders may be warranted, and up to and including a meter in width. That having been said, yes, to say that if you adopt this, there wouldn't be an impact in the next few years, I can't make that statement. That having been said, the allowances that we've made in the budget or the capital works forecast will accommodate some of the increases in width where it is warranted. But there would be probably some relatively modest increases in the estimates.
Good, thank you. Councilor Nishikawa?
Thank you. Along the same lines that Danelda had, and I'm not necessarily looking for the answers at this particular meeting, but I just wanted to share my questions or concerns. So one of the first things was that I get concerned when we start putting some fears into a report saying that the township may be involved in the courts for not having the correct standards for our roads, or however we want to read into that. And mostly, again, not the answer at this moment, but I would like to understand, has there ever been a case brought against this municipality for their road standards? And then I also have a concern about preserving the rural feel. I'm very concerned that we are paving paradise, and it's not just us, it's residents as well. We talked for a number of times through planning and a bit from, I'll talk about the road part, but you know, my concern is that we are looking to make a standard more similar to Toronto or some bigger city, and that is not Muskoka Lakes. There was an interesting conversation when Director Schmidt, way back when, then I followed his, no, he wasn't director, he was the CAO, sorry. But there, you know, I followed his recommendations around Bracebridge. And so, for instance, doing more of a gravel-based road, for instance, other than paving. So I'd like to have a bigger understanding of that and where it's worked better, or that other municipalities have had experience from. I'm a little bit concerned that we get the speeds correct. I think I can misinterpret, I would say, the report, that in fact, in most of our rural roads that don't have the feeder roads in are 70 to 80K. That concerns me quite a bit because the roads are not to that standard to actually accept that. Mortimer's Point East Bay Road, for instance, are examples. And we've known over the years that Mortimer's Point, we've reduced it significantly, which has not been a bad thing, but I'm just saying, I'm also concerned about removal of large landmark rocks that historically have actually slowed down traffic. But if all of a sudden we're going to start widening the roads because we're saying, well, this is a thorough road, we're going to get the opposite happening. We're going to get more speed. So I'm just a little bit concerned about some of those items, along with pedestrian access. Does every road have to be yellowed? That again, I don't want to lose our rural feeling. So I'll leave it at that. But I am interested in following up, though, Bracebridge's example of tending to the roads a little bit differently. Thank you.
Good. Well, thank you. And thank you for that assembly of concerns and questions. I think that's exactly and primarily what we are looking forward to the commentary from this committee on for October the 1st. I'm not so sure I can let you speak to that, but to my mind, we're going to have many more discussions about this down the road. I don't know, Ken, if you want a general comment, and then we'll go to Councilor Mazan, or
can you hear me, Mr. Chairman?
we can. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
There is nothing carved in stone, Mr. Chairman, with respect to the timeline that is outlined in the report. If committee wishes to extend that for a whole host of very good and valid reasons, then as I've indicated, we haven't had a standard for some time. A few more months, I don't think is going to amount to a hill of beans worth of difference.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Councilor Mazan, and then I'll ask the question.
Thank you, and through you. And thank you very much for this report, Director Becking. A question for you. Just given the importance of our infrastructure and our roads, we've now just declared or participating in a climate action strategy. I have to think that there's some kind of correlation or policies or considerations that might link with this, and perhaps that's already been incorporated into the items that you have outlined for us. But so, for example, if I look at the section 2 about the storm drainage system, stormwater management, and it says post-development flows must be equal or less than pre-development levels for all storm events up to and including the regional event. I mean, I really am asking the question, as we embark on this within the township, within the district of Muskoka. I think roads are probably one of our biggest areas of opportunity in this area. Question.
Okay, question. Go ahead, Ken.
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
We can. Go ahead.
Okay. The councillor raises a interesting point, and one that while it may not be obvious to you, has to a degree been wound through this document. What this document, as specifically as it relates to the example that Councillor Mazan raised, by restricting post-development flows to pre-development, we're not allowing massive increases in flow to occur. We're going to be requiring that proponents of off-road development manage the storm runoff in ways that prevents large quantities of water being put into the road allowance to then have to be conveyed to our receiving bodies. You'll note that there is a requirement for stormwater treatment of stormwater to remove 80% of suspended solids. The intent there is to improve water quality so that we're not polluting our lakes unnecessarily, and we're taking the appropriate precautions. As it relates to climate change, I think the councillor is touching upon a very big issue. We're seeing warmer winters with differing winter storm events, more freezing rain, less snow. That is going to have implications for gravel roads, as an example, and frankly, our ability to maintain gravel roads. So this is part of I think a much broader discussion that needs to take place. And to my earlier point, I think we owe it to ourselves to make sure that we're having those discussions.
Good. Thank you. Very good. A good dialogue. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick supplemental / clarification. And thank you, Director Becking. I assume that you probably have been looking at it with this lens, but given the size and scale and the importance, I just want to be sure that if we have that committee that is still working at the district with all the different municipalities, we continue to be looking to to be developing or adding into this type of a document any kind of best practices or standards. So I guess I'm just putting the challenge out to you I know it's not easy, but keeping this document fluid and being able to add to it for all of these things that we're, I guess, looking forward to. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, thanks for that. The CAO has a comment.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Further to Councillor Mazan's comments with respect to the climate action plan, my suspicion is that document will make recommendations about looking at this type of thing, which is, I think, what you were saying. So again, whatever committee adopts can be adjusted to address best practices as they evolve over time as we go forward. Thank you.
Good, thank you. And so I think I'll move ahead with, I know that Director Becking did indicate that, one could pause this for a bit, but I see no reason unless committee does, and I'm not seeing anybody vehemently opposed to this initial deadline. I guess I might just ask, as of October 1st, when you're expectant of input from we 10, is there a mechanism in place for a secondary? Are you going to reach out to everyone and say, I've only received 3? Thank you, committee, for your 10 comments, or just so that we, you can mark our own paper. Let's get this thing going. Again, I'm not seeing any interest in delaying this or extending or prolonging this. So not seeing any comments at all. I'm going to read this resolution, and thank you for that consideration. Moved by Councillor Jaglowitz, seconded by Councillor Kelly. Be it resolved that the General Finance Committee recommend to Township Council the committee member comments on the draft Township Road System Design Standards document attached as Appendix 1 to report number PW-2021-016 be provided by October 1st, 2021. All those in favor? Committee? Sorry, Councillor Nishikawa, I'm sorry. Councillor Nishikawa, you have a comment? Yes, your hand is up. I'm so sorry.
Sorry, I couldn't get my hand up that quick. I heard Councillor Becking say something about the timeline, and I'm just wondering if we could give this a further timeline.
Let's ask committee. Committee overall, okay, there's Councillor Edwards, a thumbs up, Councillor Roberts, Councillor Bridgman. Now, can you clarify what you see as more time?
I would suggest that the end of 2021.
Okay, so Ken, does that Public Works, does that feed into any narrative that you've got for other things meshing, melding into this? Does this affect budget? Does this affect your 2022 plans, or?
Mr. Chairman, as I indicated, I think it's more important that we get this right than get it done quick. If it's the will of committee that we should have take a longer period of time to review and consider this matter, that I am at your disposal in that regard.
Okay, so I'm going to let the CAO speak again.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So the notionally, if committee wishes to have this dealt with by the end of the year, perhaps what we should be looking at is sort of the comments to staff by the beginning of November. Committee could reconsider the document at their November meeting, and then on to council for December, or it really depends on the discussion at committee in November. But if we put out too far out, we may not get comments to Mr. Becking in time. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm just wondering, now we have 2 more hands up. So here we go. Okay, Councillor Edwards and then Councillor Hayes.
I don't think this is a panic. I think we should let Director Becking bring it back when it's convenient for him. I don't want to see a deadline of such and such. If he needs an extra month, or he can bring it forward, and that he's definitely looking at it. He knows what his schedule is, so let him bring it back as he needs to. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you. And prior to Councillor Hayes, Director Becking, do you have if you've just got more runway there, is there a December 1st? Is it year end as Councillor Nishikawa has opined? What do you think? Can't hear you. Sorry, you're muted.
I would concur with the CAO. If it's extended out too far, it falls off the table and is very difficult to pick up again. If committee can get comments back to me by the end of October, that'll allow staff to bring forward a report and a recommendation to you in November. You can consider it at that point. If you choose to proceed forward to council, then that can happen in December and wrap it up before the year end.
Good, thank you. I did see Councillor Nishikawa shaking her head to the affirmative on that one. Okay, Councillor Hayes, go ahead.
Yes, through you. In order to expedite matters, would it be possible to bring forward any changes that you've received at the by the beginning of October to the October meeting? And then we could have a discussion on those, and then you would know where you stand on those. And then all we have to discuss in November is just what comes in between the middle of October and the middle of November, rather than doing one big report in November. Oops.
Yeah, I'm not sure of that. What does committee think of that? I mean, yes, in terms of an aggregate, I think this is that big an issue, and I think it should be dealt with personally at one large point in time, as opposed to, I think there's so much that's linked and leveraged together, but that's just my opinion. Committee, Councillor Nishikawa, go ahead.
I would be concerned that we would be taking up a space, if you would say, at the next committee. And I think that the conversation will end up being repeated. And I would suggest that if we just stuck with getting our comments in by the end of October, rather than the end of September, I think that we should be able to fulfill things a little bit greater. Again, I would hate to take a place marker for the next meeting and then the next meeting and then the next meeting possibly. So that's why I would agree that at the end of October is a good time frame for most of us to be able to do this effectively, I believe, and also to allow the director to get it in the style that he wants to present it.
Okay, good, thank you. And is that a general agreement, folks, of a committee? Can I sort of get a general sort of positive aspect? I'm seeing much here. Yes, October 31st. So I should read the resolution again. Cheryl, I've changed it. I just amended it to October 31st.
I think it was just a typo in the resolution from October 1st to 31st. The 31 was later, was missing. So we can probably make that as a friendly amendment.
Thank you for pointing that out. Okay, all those in favor? Good, thank you, committee. Okay. So item 5D, report from the Director of Public Works, Ken Becking, on the Community Building Fund application. Ken, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Briefly, the province has introduced a new program intended to assist municipalities with rehabilitation of sports and recreation infrastructure. Applications are due to the province by the 29th of September. For municipalities of our size, the program will cover 100% of costs up to $500,000. Projects must be completed within 6 to 12 months. On the basis of those guidelines, I have outlined for you in the report 7 alternatives that were identified and considered. I've indicated to you the pros and cons associated with each one as staff see it. And the staff recommendation is a redevelopment of the Milford Bay Community Center grounds as being something that likely best suits the program guidelines and would create a considerable benefit and fall within the financial limitations of the program. So that is the staff recommendation.
Okay, this is an interesting one. One wonders if one goes along ward lines, but I'll reserve that for a little while here. Here's Councillor Roberts. Go ahead, and then Councillor Jagowitz.
I don't understand what ward lines are, but I will comment that what I was going to ask Director Becky right off the bat. You have the 7 lists of items. You have selected Milford Bay Community Center because you thought it was the best possibility of success for the criteria of the application. And I'm just wondering, I know we've had other requests from other community centers for different things. And I guess did you take those into consideration? As in Ward A, and I guess in Ward A and Ward B and Ward C, were there other little things that we could have done?
Every ward, Mr. Chairman, has infrastructure that certainly could benefit. Some wards have infrastructure that require a modest level of funding. Some ward projects have a need for significant amounts of funding. In attempting to arrive at a recommendation for you, I considered benefit to the community. I considered the scope and scale of any renovation or redoing of infrastructure. How did that match with the potential funding? And at the end of the day, arrived at this particular project as being, in my estimation, the best fit for the bolt that the province was dealing to us. Would I say that this is the top priority in the entire township? No. But by the same token, it is the best fit.
Best fit, okay.
Relative to the provincial priorities.
Good, and thanks for that clarification. And just to clarify my earlier comment, Councillor Roberts, as I look in aggregate at what our good director provided is of interest is this $500,000 cap, and by the same token, one could see a Bala Town floating dock for $150K. A pickleball court in 3 locations, and one in each ward, it would seem, and renovating all of the washrooms for year-round service, which was a hot topic last year. So what I'm suggesting is, it was a difficult choice. We have to listen to our staff, and I would maybe be a little more amenable to sprinkling the money around, but if Director Becking doesn't think we stand a good chance of that, then I'll certainly support his recommendation. Thank you. Councillor Jagowitz, Hayes, and then Nishikawa.
Thank you, Chair. As I read the report, there's funding up to $500,000, and that's 100% of the project cost, which is certainly something we shouldn't pass up. Can it be multiple projects, as being suggested? Also, you've picked the Milford Bay, but that's only $300,000. So I just wondered, if it's actually funding 100% of the project, should we not use it all up? So I kind of agree with the chair. A comment there? Can it be multiple projects?
Dr. Becky?
Mr. Chairman, my understanding is that it's based on a single project. I can request further clarification if council or committee rather wishes to identify 2 or 3 or 4 projects that would maximize the 500,000. Obviously, no one wants to turn one's nose up at 100% dollars from somebody else or some other level of government. Staff would take that direction, and we'll pursue it to the extent that we are able.
Okay, good. Thank you. And let's listen to some other councillors here. So, Councillor Hayes, Councillor Nishikawa.
Yes, thank you. Through you. I'm always a counselor that wants to spread the money around between all of our community centers. However, as indicated, the Milford Bay is our best shot of getting funding, so I'll be supporting this.
Good, thank you. Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you. And I think I was going to share similar comments as Councillor Hayes. But I would also ask the question of the director as to, is this worded in a way, for instance, that it is about providing outdoor opportunities, outdoor exercise opportunities? Because I would just speak, for instance, that we know that $10,000 would improve Torrance greatly by improving the rink surface, but I also believe that there's, it's not enough money to actually, sort of screw up the application. The only reason why I would look at that is to say, okay, if it's worded in such a way that we could maybe bulk a couple of those other items in place, and I'm not even adding Bala in this, but like if there is like the little one-offs of, the $10,000, can you join them in? Otherwise, I'm happy with this report.
Good, thank you. So Director Becking, given that you've come forward with this report, you must have a certain degree of comfort that it isn't a multiple project ask by the government. Is that, can I say that?
My understanding, Mr. Chairman, is that applications are being received on a single project basis for funding up to the funding level indicated. Okay. I'm prepared to press the point with the province to see if we can get some relief or some latitude in doing so. And if I can find my way clear to adding in a few more projects in order to maximize the size of the application, I'll do so. But my current understanding is that we're better off to go with one single well-developed project than a more broadly based approach.
Okay, thank you. So I wonder if committee is comfortable with Public Works Ken Becking's words here, where in fact we would, I would read this resolution for this, but saving his commentary, his further understanding of the clarification of the rules from the province that we could then, I guess, could be addressed at council. Is there comfort in that, or do we change this? I'm seeing a nodding of heads. Good, good, good. So general agreement. Oh, Councillor Roberts, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. If it's really a gift to our township and to the community. The community, I've reached out to the community, and they want to have a key stakeholder position on what is going to happen on that property. Given they have invested thousands of dollars on the outdoor equipment and the betterment of that property. So just, I don't know how you can pull that off, Ken, but it's the community really has ideas. And, so anyways, I just saying the community needs a quick input or a review of what your plans are. Thank you.
Good, thank you. And as this is a timely approach to the government, we need to move on with this. So Councillor Mazan, go ahead.
Thank you, and through you, just picking up on that last comment, as I read this, I think there's a sense of timing, just given my involvement on the Recreational Master Plan Committee. I've seen and perhaps Director Becking could support this, but it would seem like there's new funding coming out quite a bit these days. And I think if I'm reading this was one that you thought we might have had some success getting some funding, even though we're still in the process of doing our master plan. Is that correct?
Ken?
Mr. Chairman, the counselor is correct. If to my earlier comment, this is being driven by the province's priority list as opposed to the township's priority list. If it weren't such a good deal, I might be giving you a different recommendation, which is to finish the master plan, identify what the priorities are, and then pursue that. That having been said, that can't be accomplished before September 29th. So at the end of the day, I think we take our best shot at this thing. If we win, then that's one less thing that we have to worry about in terms of township infrastructure that needs to be addressed. If we don't, then we haven't, all we're out is a little bit of my time.
Good answer. Okay, given a certain willingness that I view here on behalf of committee, I'd like to read this resolution moved by Councillor Mazan, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved that the General Finance Committee recommend to Council that staff be authorized to submit an application to the Community Building Fund, which facilitates a redevelopment of the Milford Bay Community Center grounds to include a new playground, sports field, basketball court, pickleball courts, and pump track (brackets mountain biking track), and that the Director of Public Works be authorized to sign all documents necessary for the application. All those in favor? Good, thank you. It's carried. Okay, and yet again, Director Becking has a report, an interesting report, very timely, on facility reopening and COVID protection measures here in the Township, Muskoka Lakes. Councillor, though, Nishikawa, Mazan has a comment. Pray that. Your hand is up. Oh, it's not, your hand's not up. Okay, good. Oh, so sorry there, Director Becking, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief. My purpose is to simply bring to your attention what is the current state of reopening as it relates to the infrastructure that's currently under my control. With respect to the arenas, the Port Carling Arena is now open and being used. We have, as you probably will recall, 6 community centers open 5 days a week. Cleaning and sanitization continues to be a challenge for us, and having the staff available to do so. Occupancy limits are being adhered to based on the type of event and the provincial regulations. Parks and trails are all open and have been for a considerable period of time. We are signing as necessary to provide guidance to people as to appropriate behaviors. In terms of the path forward, I'm sure you're all aware we're facing issues with respect to proof of vaccination. Those regulations do apply to both our community centers and to our arenas. So we're having to deal with that issue. We are, as it relates to the community centers, we are allowing limited use there and will continue to do so. We can accommodate the current demand without any additional openings. With respect to our arenas, again, we are able to accommodate our current demands with the one arena open. That will be evaluated and reassessed on an as and when required basis. With that, Mr. Chairman, that's a very quick overview and probably doesn't do it justice, but be that as it may, I'll be happy to try and answer any questions.
Okay, committee, Councilor Nishikawa, go ahead.
Thank you. It was just, I'm not sure if it's this report or a follow-up report, but just concerning the Bala Arena. And I guess the bigger conversation is, what else can we do there using the indoor surface without putting the ice in? But mostly if in fact there's a possibility of creating more pickleball space, specifically pickleball space, until it's too cold to use the space, I guess.
So, Director Becking, can you speak to the physical usage of that facility, COVID sensitive?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman, staff have been reaching out to the traditional user groups of the Bala Arena. At present, there is insufficient demand to warrant opening of the facility. We could accommodate some interior use. That having been said, I caution you in that the space is unheated, and so the length of time that it can be available for use is extremely limited, perhaps a month or two at best.
Okay, others? Councilor Shikawa, any other commentary? Sorry, and then others? Okay, so Councilor Hayes and Councilor Hayes, go ahead.
Yes, through you. Could a consideration be an indoor walking track? We do walk outdoors at the sports park, but if it's not heated, all the difference is that it will be more secure footing for people that are challenged with balance. It would be indoors so that we would be able to use it all the time. They could wear their coats and just use it as a walking track inside. At least that way we would be getting some use out of it and the community would see a benefit from it.
Okay, what do others, well, that's interesting as it relates very specifically to Ward A and the use of the Bala Arena. I'm not sure where to go with that in terms of, I mean, I guess if it was the will of this group, go ahead.
What I can suggest, Mr. Chairman, is perhaps staff can look at opportunities for alternate use. And, on the surface of it, my immediate reaction is, provided that we've got the staff to accommodate it and we've got the people adhering to the regulations with respect to COVID, then it is possible, and we can look into that and make adjustments to suit.
Okay, given the timeliness of this, again, would that be something coming back to this committee in a month? And there we are in the middle of October. Cranberries in there. Councilor Ishikawa, go ahead.
Thank you. Well, again, I would just take Director Becking's recommendation that he just made. He can do a report. I think it would be mostly about the walking, quite frankly, and that would be year round, or like through the winter months is what more. But I wanted to also say that this is not a ward thing. I hope that this council is not choosing things because it's a particular ward. So let's maybe not have those add-ins. This is just about a municipal building discussion. And in fact, you might find somebody from Ward C or B to step foot in the Bala Arena. I don't want to get into these conversations, but I hope that we don't start adding those little things about, well, this is for Ward A. Well, it's not about Ward A. It's about our municipal building.
Yeah, I simply was directing the idea that it is in Bala. So, Hecla's a long way away. Sure, let's use it. I mean, I would rather deal with the more fulsome notion that there could be a way to use that facility. And I have made a rather strong recommendation on the master plan for next year and beyond, and how we would repurpose Bala and make it the Township of Muskoka Lakes, recreational center. So I'm fine with that. I'm not sure where to go with this, though. As I say, I mean, Ken, if you could come forward, is that the will of this committee that Ken would come forward with some recommendations for October as to how we would utilize that facility? Am I seeing that generally? Yeah, I'm seeing some thumbs up here. Good. Okay. So Ken, if you would be so kind as to bring that back as a sidebar to your report here today as it relates to, from information purposes only, relating to use of our facilities based on COVID and public health. So, okay, thank you, Ken, for that. In fact, I think that pretty much wraps you up, sir, for the moment, if I might. Thank you very much for your time and your good reports. Item 6A is now corporate services. A report from Mark Donaldson, Director of Financial Services, regarding interest rates on development charge freezes and deferrals. You have the floor, sir. Welcome. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members of committee. So the province passed Bill 108, the More Homes, More Choice Act, and in that bill, there were some changes related to the application of development charges. The legislation now provides for a freeze of development charges at an earlier date than the traditional issuance of a building permit, and for payments of development charges of certain types of development, there's an eligibility for deferral. The legislation also provides for municipalities to issue an interest charge for the freeze period and the periods of deferral for the time value of money and recovery of any administrative burden associated with overseeing this these new pieces. So area treasurers have met and discussed this, and the proposal before committee today to set an interest rate is consistent with the approach being proposed by all the other area municipalities in the district. And in addition, I want to make committee aware that the current development charge bylaw does provide for the annual indexation of fees, but no changes have occurred in our development charges since the bylaw was passed in 2019. So in light of that, staff are recommending the development of a policy for the township that will address this and other issues related to the administration of development charges for the township. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Good. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Committee, any thoughts? Okay, good. Thank you for that report, Mark. I have a resolution here moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Hayes. Be it resolved that the General Finance Committee recommended council that a rate equal to the average annual Statistics Canada non-residential building construction price index at September 30th each year, plus 1% be applied on freezes and deferrals of development charges where applicable, and that the Director of Financial Services be authorized to execute any agreements related to development charge payment agreements in Section 27 of the Development Charges Act, DCA, agreements for payment of development charges as required, and finally, that the Director of Financial Services be directed to develop a policy for administration and annual indexation of development charges in accordance with the township's development charges bylaw. All those in favor? Good, thank you. It's carried. Okay, well, thanks for that, Mark. We do have a report here on a land and agreements, original road allowance application, Luker, roll 4-19-0190, and we have a report. Michelle, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. So the township has received an application for the purchase of a portion of an original road allowance. Based on staff comments, it's recommended that tentative approval be given. So with that said, I will turn it back to the chair.
Okay, thank you. Any comments, committee? I'm gonna look at here. Others, Councillor Hayes, go ahead.
Just a quick question through you to staff. Are there any other areas that have applied for ownership of the road allowance along that concession?
Go ahead.
To my knowledge, there has not been.
Okay, all right, good.
Okay, thank you. And I believe the report states that we have contacted the other person and we haven't heard back yet. Okay, so, oh, Councillor Hayes, your hand's still up. Go ahead.
No, I meant along that concession, are there any other property owners who have purchased the road allowance so that it is broken Or is this the first person to break that concession? Because right now it could be used as a walking trail or anything. And I'm just wondering, we've heard from snowmobilers in the past that we've closed sections that were used traditionally by snowmobilers. And I'm just wondering if that's the case.
Good question. Chriselle, or is that Chriselle? Okay, go ahead.
To my knowledge, no, it has not been stopped up and closed from the applicant's property to the water. This road allowance no longer leads to water. To my knowledge, that portion was involved with the land swap many years ago. So again, to my knowledge, no neighboring properties to the road allowance have applied to purchase any further portion of the road allowance beyond the applicant's property.
Good, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, good. I have a resolution here moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Jaglowitz. Be it resolved that the General Finance Committee recommended council that tentative approval be given to the application submitted by Mark Luker, Roll 4-19-01901 for the purchase of a portion of an original road allowance lying between concessions 12 and 13, Lot 18, Medora, subject to the conditions of Township Policy C-LS-08 and the staff report entitled Application for the Purchase of a Portion of an Original Road Allowance and dated September 15th, 2021. All those in favor? Good, thank you. That's unanimous. Cheryl, good? Okay. Good, thank you. Okay, so now we have a report from, sorry, we got that. I'll acknowledge item 7A, receipt of the minutes of the Public Library Board and thank them for their time and their energy and their effort. Item 8A is a report from Corey Moore. It's the Memorandum of Understanding regarding 2021 operating grants. Corey, welcome, sir, and you've got the floor.
Thank you, Chair Zavitz, through you to committee. As committee may recall, this past winter, we updated our municipal grants policy. In respect to that, it states that successful operating grant applicants are required to enter MOUs with the township prior to the township dispersing the funding to them. The report highlights the details of those MOUs. They are with the Muskoka Lakes Museum, Walker's Point Library, and Milford Bay Library. Committee will recall we've completed an MOU similar with the Chamber of Commerce last year, so it follows those same guidelines. So today we are seeking approval for committee to authorize the mayor and clerk to sign those MOUs upon approval or satisfaction to the CAO. Happy to answer any questions.
Good, thanks, Corey. Councillor Hayes, go ahead.
Through you, Corey, in reading through the MOU, some of it is different than what was set up in the beginning. The two community libraries I'm going to refer to, not the museum, they were basically set up under the hall board as a subcommittee. They were completely insured. They were to report their volunteers every year. As far as I know, they do not have insurance, either one of them, because they are part of the hall board, part of the community center. So number 6 and number 10, I would probably have a problem with. In number 7, financial arrangements, it says upon the budget going through, they will receive their funds, but funds are already given to the township. So do they receive the donated funds as well as the grant every year? Or, because this is quite different than what we do right now. Usually they continue to add up in the township coffers, and then as required by the library, draws are taken. And also under management and metrics, you may want to add the events that they're involved in, that they either take the lead on or participating, and the programs that they provide. Because I know Milford Bay does a Strawberry Social and several other events outside of the library, as well as Walker's Point does the children's program and community events and fundraisings there. So that would be all I would say for them. And the community the community libraries are a little bit different. They have matching funding, and we only raised it from 2,500 to 3,000 last year. It seems overkill to have an MOU between those two small community libraries and have them lumped in with the museum and the chamber, because they are quite different in their operation. So that's the only things that I have to say.
That's
But
a
if we
lot.
could look at the insurance, historically, that would be of some comfort level.
Okay, those are good preparation there and excellent questions. So Mark's got his hand up, so I'll let Mark have the floor, sir.
And thank you, Chair, and to the councillor. So I did check with our insurer, and I guess perhaps there's some additional information that I may not fully have appreciated, but I'd certainly like to clarify. But I can tell you that what I understood from BFL is volunteers of the township or acting on behalf of the township are covered. But if this is a separate board and it's separate from the township, so it's arm's length from the township, which is what my understanding was, then our volunteer coverage under our policy would not extend to the community libraries. So that was my understanding of the arrangement, and that is how our policy currently is written.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hayes, I'll give you a supplemental if you have a, go ahead. And then Councillor
Yes.
Nishikawa.
Thank you. I know that our library comes under our community center hall board. So that puts it not at arm's length, but as part of our hall board. It is just a subcommittee, just like the Christmas committee or the event committee. So we're under the assumption that we are covered by the insurance. And if it's any different, I think that we would like to know that as soon as we can.
Mark, you want to speak to that?
Thank you, Chair, and I appreciate that context, and I'll certainly have that looked at again through that lens to ensure that we have, what side we're on, whether there is coverage extended or not, just to confirm. If there is, we'll certainly change the language in the MOU to reflect that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nishikawa and then Councillor Roberts.
Thank you. I mean, my biggest concern was that past councils, as well as this current council's feelings are not always caught under the minutes, but it has always been my understanding that the Milford Bay Library and the Walker's Point Library, I mean, they were forced into this position because a librarian in Port Carling decided that the other communities were not deserving to have a library, even though they had for many years. And so it has always been my understanding that these were volunteers through the hall board. And in fact, many of those volunteers are on the hall or have been in the past, been representatives of the hall board. I hope that we get this right, that this is not treated as a separate business venture. The same conversation or comments as Councillor Hayes is that, in fact, this is, the community reaching out to provide services that are not being provided through our library, and that it is a need, and that we are treating them as a community service. That is different than the Chamber of Commerce, which is a business venture. They're getting proceeds from their private memberships, as well as the museum. So I really feel that the topic about Milford Bay and Walker's Point doesn't deserve to be in this lump, I would say.
Okay, good. Thank you for that. Councillor Roberts.
I echo everything that my fellow councillors, Donalda Hayes and Ruth Nishikawa, just said. I am the chair of the Milford Bay Community Center. I can tell you that the community has done wonderful work there with the understanding that the township was behind them. And again, the library, those ladies and men that run that library are all volunteer work. I think this really needs a meeting between the Director of Public Works, who's responsible for the community centers, and the treasurer, and certainly the counselors that are assigned to the halls to come up with the right formula here. You know, we haven't got the people don't apply to be on the hall board, but these groups that we have, such as the memorial services, the volunteer, used to be the volunteer pancake breakfast, the Cancer Society funding, I could go on, which are community events run by community people. They need to be covered. So I think we should take this offline and make sure we get this right. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you. I'm going to let the CAO comment before we go to Councillor Edwards and Councillor Kelly.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So I just want to take committee back to the purpose of the policy. So the purpose of the policy was to outline transparency and accountability requirements for any organization that was receiving township funds. There appears to be clarity required around the insurance piece in the MOU for the community libraries. That said, we could defer the community library piece sorry, to get clarity around the insurance requirements, but it's still a good practice to have this MOU with those groups, so that there's a clear understanding you're getting the money, and we understand where that money is going through a reporting function, and that's the case with all of the other organizations that we would have MOUs with, and that was the intent of the policy. I think it's a good policy to ensure that the money's going to where the group said it would, and that we understand that. And so that then provides us with data information that we can go forward with to make better decisions in future budgets. Thank you.
Good, thank you. And I'm going to let Cheryl Mortimer, our clerk, comment.
Just for clarity, the community libraries are not listed on the community center hall board bylaws with respect to those members. So the community center hall board bylaw lists the community center hall boards, not the community center libraries.
Okay, thank you. I've got a lot of hands up here. So Councillor Kelly, Councillor Edwards, then Kelly, then Hayes, and then Roberts. Wow.
I think I agree with all the other councillors in that this is a service and that we should be looking after insurance. And I'd like to see it, instead of saying $3,000 if it's raised, it's a double whack on them if they don't raise the 3,000. So we take money away from them. I think we should just give them $3,000, and that I'd like to see that, rather than saying, okay, they only raised 2,500 this year, so now they're down 500 on their raising, and we take 500 away. And I don't think that's right. If we had to pay staff, it would be more than $3,000 a year. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you, Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, and through you. You know, the good news is that we're not really, I don't think we're trying to recreate or build something here. We're just trying to figure out how it's structured. This is a matter of it's either is or it isn't part of the hall board. Treasurer Donaldson has already, I think, done a nice bit of due diligence to figure out how the municipal insurance extends to the volunteers. And now we just have to figure out whether these libraries, as they are presently structured, fall under the municipalities' hall boards sufficiently to allow the extension of the insurance. Just a matter of fact. And I have every reason to believe that Mr. Donaldson's going to come up with the right answer, and we'll figure out how to get these people insured. It's a risk we don't want to take without insurance coverage. Just one last thought, and that is to further the CAO's suggestion. I think the MOU is an excellent way to just basically put a bare minimum amount of structure to a relationship that's probably been too open-ended in the past. And I applaud this initiative, and I've got confidence that Treasurer Donaldson's going to come back and be able to tell us how this thing is structured and make sure that we have arranged appropriate insurance.
Okay, good. Thank you. Councillor Roberts and then Councillor Hayes.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. One quick point, I do agree on the MOU. I know that I have been involved in receiving grants for the community from the township. And I tried to keep Corey involved because he's in charge of it, of what we have accomplished in there. Our community was thinking about putting in for a second intake of the grants, another application. But when I reviewed it, we hadn't spent the money from last time. The township didn't know that. I'm telling you now. But we had plans, and it was all because of COVID, nothing else. So I think we should have an MOU and then track to it so that when I have money in the pot, you'll say, oh, how much haven't you spent? You'll know that in our plans. This is to Director Hammond. Many months ago, there's just a cloud right now at all the meetings, but you'll recall that there was a commitment from staff for a volunteer report. Because I had asked that for one, and you said you wouldn't get to it now, and I'm wondering if you could go back and look at that and tell us when this could happen, because it had everything to do with the community and their involvement in the insurance. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you, sir. Councillor Hayes, and then we'll try to land this.
Yeah, I think I'm going to echo what Councillor Roberts said. I am not. I think an MOU is a very good tool. I'm not objecting to that. It's just that the insurance portion of it and the where we thought that everything was covered insurance-wise through the township, and we do actively have one of the ladies from the library on our hall board as a representative to the hall board to let them know what's happening there, because the hall board is responsible for that space. So like I said, if we can get the insurance cleaned up and the funds, I will comment on Councillor Edwards. Yes, it would be good if we had a $3,000 grant. However, this is following the tradition of Muskoka Lakes, where you have matching funding. If you want something, you go out, you get the funds for it, and then the township endorses it by matching funds. And that's what we've been working on in the past 10 years, 11 years now that we've been open. And I think that we'd like to continue on that. The $3,000 cap is perfect. And other than the insurance, I think that would be fine.
Good, thank you. Okay, so I think we have a couple of choices here in front of us in terms of directional piece. I mean, I can read the resolution as it is. I'm not hearing that there's a great comfort right now with the two libraries. We do have the Muskoka Lakes Museum on the on that, and I've got an idea here that we could support the whole thing, including all three. I read it, and when it comes to council, the questions are answered by the relevant staff members, and CAO Hammond is shaking his head in the affirmative. If committee would agree to that, that trust piece, I'll read this. Otherwise, I'll remove Walker's Point and Milford Bay Libraries and defer those two, and I guess for the next month, and bring it back to committee. So I'm not sure if there's a timeliness piece to this. Go ahead, CAO.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So just for clarity for members of committee, so that if you approve the resolution with all three pieces, if you will, staff will endeavor to clarify the insurance piece. And should the volunteers not be covered, then I think we can amend the bylaw that Ms. Mortimer indicated the volunteers weren't covered or weren't part of the hall board. We can clarify that they are, thereby clarifying the insurance piece. So those are the two areas of clarity that we will endeavor to clear up prior to council's consideration of the matter, should you wish to keep all three pieces in. Thank you.
Good. Thank you for that clarification, and I suppose peace of mind. Committee, do I have a general, oh, so there's Councillor Hayes with a thought before I ask. Go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to know if the insurance could be extended to the value of the books and the DVDs and the computers that they have. Because there's been quite an investment in that, and half of that investment has been from the township. So it would, if there was a fire, basically they would have nothing. So I would like to see the actual supplies also covered under the insurance, if possible.
Thank you. I'll ask of staff. Is that within the realm of the scope of the insurance? So Mark, if you don't mind, please go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Chair, and we'll make that inquiry. I would think that the current policy would be restricted to the property that belongs to the township. So we'd have to clarify actual ownership of that property to determine if that was in fact possible to do. But I'll confirm that.
Okay, so do we have general consensus, committee, that we have some comfort with staff's commitments to bringing this forward when it comes to council next month? If I read this resolution now, I'm seeing a general, yeah, good. Okay, here we go. Moved by Councillor Kelly, seconded by Councillor Mazan. Be it resolved that the General Finance Committee recommend to Township Council that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the memorandums of understanding with the Muskoka Lakes Museum, the Walker's Point Library, and the Milford Bay Library, and that the final terms of said memorandums of understanding be to the satisfaction of the CAO. All those in favor? Good. Thank you. Committee. Okay, moving right along. Unfinished business item. Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. I so apologize. Item 8B, which is the minutes of the Economic Development Grants Committee meeting of June 30th. Would ask the chair if he has any commentary to bring forward or. No, good. Okay, thank you, sir. Item 9, unfinished business. Is there any? Committee? Okay, there's Councillor Hayes. Go ahead.
I'm just putting this on your radar for the 2022 budget. I believe the Adopt a Home Committee has put in a request for funding. If you could all keep that in mind for the 2020 budget, I'm sure we'll have more information in the future.
Shameless promotion. I love it. Way to go. Thank you for that. And yes, I mean, more to come on that over the months to follow. Item 10, under new business, I would, if I might, take this opportunity to invite Councillor Susan Mazan, Chair Susan Mazan of the the Recreational Master Plan program that we've been embarking on as a township over the months, to perhaps give us a brief update or a synopsis of where they are with that. Thank you.
Thank you, and through you. And if I could, I'd ask Director Becking actually just to walk committee through a quick status update of the work to date. Is Director Becking there?
Good, thank you, Ken. There he is. Go ahead, Ken.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as you're aware, a consultant has been appointed, and despite a slow start, which I acknowledge, they are pressing forward at a fair clip now. Background gathering is well advanced and in fact is nearing completion. In terms of community engagement, we've raised the awareness of the project through media communications and through website. A hall board survey has been conducted. We've received responses from over 70% of the hall boards, and we will be following up with those that have not responded as yet to ensure that we get 100% participation. A user survey and engagement is underway. We've received responses from over 40% of the 80+ groups that were identified. A park user survey was conducted via QR code access through the latter part of July and into September. And that covered 5 of the main parks that we have in our inventory. The community engagement at large is scheduled to commence starting the week of September 21st. And you should be receiving contact from the consultant with respect to interviews of each of you as it relates to your impressions of current programs. That will also start the week of September 21st. A public workshop is currently scheduled for October 6th, and that'll be conducted via Zoom, and youth engagement is also pending. In the coming period, we will be having the consultant generate an interim report based on the investigations and feedback that they've received to date. The data that they have obtained, of course, will be consolidated and analyzed in depth, and they will be initiating their options identification and analysis. As I indicated, we got a slow start, and I would estimate that we're probably 4 to 6 weeks behind at the present time. I anticipate a completion date of sometime in the middle of the first quarter of 2022. But I think it's more important that we get it right than get it quick. And so to that end, we'll work towards that. As far as budget is concerned, there are no adverse budget implications at the present time that I'm aware of. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to answer questions.
Good. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate the update. Committee, any thoughts, wants, needs, observations? Okay, good. I see none. Thank you both for that report. We are in item 10A on the agenda, district municipality of updates. I would call on the mayor first as it relates to public works. Mayor Harding.
Thank you very much. I apologize. There's just printing a document in the background to get ready for this afternoon. The only one issue or main item of our public works meeting that would concern council is there was a potential license of occupation on Muskoka Road 25, which is Brackenrig Road, where an individual had installed a dock, had some boats, and was applying for a license of occupation. Committee has denied that application, and I believe that our building department has asked for the docks to be removed to be compliant. The lot across the road is not a building lot, and as such, we have corrected the wrong. And we are also asking for staff at the district to actually put in place a little bit more of an appropriate policy to deal with licenses of occupation and or the granting of them. So we are looking at that from a district-wide level. The only other comment that I'll make is we did attend a number of councillors did the AMO conference through the August. There were a number of days, and thanks to those councillors who attended. Hopefully you found it informative. It usually is an opportunity for us to do some FaceTime, if you will, with many of the ministers. Had several meetings on a lot of different topics, and just keeping, again, in front of those ministers so that we can move the dialogue forward. The one item that I will bring up, and I can bring it up in new business, but I probably appropriate at this particular point, the CIO and I attended a meeting and a delegation that was there at the conference. They talked about, I'm having a little mental gap, basically those people who are lobby groups, if you will. They have a lobby registry to actually promote transparency within government. And I'll use this, what's happened in the last couple months in particular, and I can say that I have been named from a number of people in the public saying that I'm having private conversations with developers, or I'm having private conversations with whomever it is to advance business outside of council. And if we were to implement something like a lobby registry organization, I think it would solve all those problems, because when those kinds of conversations happen with any of council in an effort for transparency, we know where they're coming from, and we know how council may or may not be influenced accordingly. So I would ask that our committee at this particular time, we need to do some more investigation, but I would love for staff to come back with some information, maybe a staff report to understand what a lobby registry could do for our council and our committee, and how it would really increase transparency for the general public. And I put that out there as a question to everybody.
Okay, thank you, sir. I wonder if CAO, putting him completely on the spot, would like to speak to that.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. If this is something that committee is interested in staff reporting back on, if you pass a resolution or direct us to do so, then we will.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Roberts.
At this time, I'm very supportive of what Mayor Harding has proposed. And I look forward to maybe how the Integrity Commissioner can contribute to this as a group. I don't know whether that's a forum to bring it up, but we can talk offline on that, because it's anyways, enough said in public.
I think that's the whole reason for it. Thank you, sir, for that. Councillor Bridgman, go ahead. You have a comment.
Just quickly, thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm very supportive of a report coming back, and I don't know enough about the details yet to make any other comments, but I'm interested in learning.
Good, thank you. So again, I would direct to staff. Sorry, we're going to let the clerk, Cheryl Mortimer, have a comment here. Thank you. Sorry, yeah, okay. So what Cheryl's making a good point. Is there consensus amongst the group, amongst the committee, to have staff move forward with some sort of a report, a fulsome discovery piece, if you will, on this very subject? Do we have a, yeah, I'm looking at show of hands. There we go. So yeah, looks like it's unanimous that we would ask of staff to bring forward a staff report. Now, again, speaking to timing, I think we'll, are we comfortable, committee, for the moment, letting staff come back to us with an update in, I'm seeing this in the next, at the next meeting, just in terms of where. That's a job for the clerk. Oh, the new clerk. There you go. Okay, well, okay, yeah, CAO has his finger up. There we go.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I think Councillor Roberts made a good point. I mean, we will be hearing from our Integrity Commissioner in October, so we could pose some questions of her, and then staff could follow up with a report in consultation with her after that meeting. Thank you.
Sounds good to me. Committee, are you good with that? Okay, we have an informal agreement on that. Thank you. Okay, good. I have nothing to read on that particular point, but we'll move on from there. Thanks for that interface. Ruth Nishikawa, Councillor Nishikawa, I'm asking you on any commentary from the District of Muskoka in your role.
I'll just talk about, first of all, I wanted to make a comment about Public Works District. That was a perfect example of us being successfully working with the other municipalities or the other councillors throughout the whole district, recognizing that we are councillors for the whole district. And I want to say that that particular event that happened on Brackenrig was a really good meeting, and in fact, with the majority of council, I think if not all the council or committee members moving that forward. So again, I would just recommend to others that take the moment to watch that particular meeting, because that is a direction that I hope that we can move forward in the future. I want to talk about health services. And of course, we've had more discussion about Fairvern. There's lots of money issues, design issues, all of that are being involved. Some discussions are in closed session, some are not. So I'm not actually going to move forward much more on that conversation, other than it's happening. The other issue, as well as we brought forward, there were funding requirements that were applied for Andy's house that was being approved. We got a report about that, and so that's a good thing. And more importantly, I would say something that I have learned. I'm trying to follow up what that exact percentage is. While we talk about, for instance, a community having 70% vaccination coverage. So we see those numbers through other areas when you really dive into the reports from Dr. Gardner from the health unit. What was brought forward to me was that Muskoka Lakes is in the 50% percentile. And I was a little bit surprised at that, because when I look at, those that I know, maybe I just have a very small circle, but I'm very concerned that our numbers, we need to be more cognizant of what that number is, and hopefully I can get that clarified. It may be 54%, but I'm just very concerned that Muskoka Lakes looks at themselves and do what they can. I mean, we talked about it that at Health Services that, we'll do some kind of campaigning and that type of thing. But I think all of council has a little bit of responsibility to pass the message on about vaccinations. And I was just very surprised that Muskoka Lakes is really low down on the vaccination rates. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that report. Oh, there's a couple of hands. So Councillor Roberts and then Hayes, go ahead. Oh, you're muted. Gord?
Sorry. Maybe this goes to other business or that, but we should be talking about what this township is doing to ensure that people using our, all staff, anyone that comes into our community centers must be vaccinated or use other alternatives. Is this discussed now or under other business? Probably under business.
Okay.
I actually, to talk about that, Councillor Zavitz, I don't believe that at this moment that we should be continuing that particular conversation. It's much bigger. And I really don't think, seeing that we have a council meeting that's supposed to start soon, I think that we should look at that as a bigger discussion, but I just wanted to make committee aware of the knowledge that was provided to me at this time.
Good. Okay, thank you. I know we will be discussing likely starting the council meeting at either 1:30 or 2 o'clock. So there is a few minutes here, but we have also discussed this previous with Director Becking's report on COVID as it relates to our facilities. And I know that the CAO has a comment before I ask Councillor Hayes for her comment. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. You're spot on. I think Mr. Becking's report did speak to the provincial requirement, which is going to apply to our arenas and community centers. The direction with respect to staff, the medical officer of health is recommending a vaccination policy. The CAOs in Muskoka have met and discussed that. We're taking a pragmatic approach, waiting for the health unit to establish their own policy, which they were seeking legal advice on. That has yet to be passed. And quite frankly, the system that we have in place is working. So I don't really see a need to complicate it with a policy at this point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that commentary. Councillor Hayes, go ahead.
Just to follow on Councillor Nishikawa's comments, at the Gravenhurst Farmers Market today from 9 until 2, there's a pop-up clinic. So if you are interested in getting your shot, you can kill two birds with one stone, go see the wonderful farmers market and get up to date on your shot.
Good, thank you. Okay, thank you, Councillor Nishikawa, for your comments on health services. Councillor Edwards, you go right ahead, sir.
Thank you. Because I was on holidays, I wasn't at the meeting, so I don't have a actual report. But when we come up on the next one, where community events, I can say that the Cherry Fox Run in Windermere is virtual this year. People are walking. My wife and I are walking. If anyone wants to sponsor us, it's on our website. And you can sponsor it at cherryfox.ca/Allen with a capital A, Linda with a capital L, Edwards with a capital E. And you're welcome to sponsor. Everybody has had somebody that has had and that cancer in their family. So support it. Thank you.
Good job. Thank you, sir. Thank you for that report. Councillor Jagwitz, Frank Jagwitz, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be very brief. Our Finance and Corporate Services our meeting was quite routine. We dealt with our auditor and our annual financial statements for 2020. Of course, we approved a loader for $513,000 for one of the waste transport sites. I did attend the AMO conference, which has been mentioned, and I did participate in the Engineering and Public Works Committee meeting regarding the Brocken Ridge situation. I don't know if you're all aware, but here's an example of where the townships reps at the district got together and asked that that be denied. And there was support, as Ruth has indicated. And rather than that being deferred so it can come back, it was actually denied. So I think there's an example. If we can all get on the same page, we can accomplish something. That's my report. Thank you.
Good. Excellent. Thank you very much. And I know many of us watching and listening here today are most appreciative of the district initiative on that regard, and we need to stand tall. Item 10B, community events update. So I'll certainly give the floor to anyone with their hand up as it relates to upcoming community events, things that are transpiring in the area. Okay, Councilor Nishikawa, go ahead.
Well, just so you, Cranberry Festival has received approval from the health unit to move forward with Cranberry Festival. So that portion is good to go. Just wanted to let everyone know that particular piece.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Harding.
Thank you. If anybody's interested, there is a charity event for, I think it's Dollars for Dishes or Dollars for Dinners. That's been on for a number of years. It's a boat poker run on Saturday, starting at 9 a.m. at the Port Carling Locks on Lake Rosso. It is a Donzi poker run, but I'm pretty sure they would allow anyone into the poker run as well. Anyway, 9 a.m. if you want to see some cool boats, a lot of history.
Thank you for that. Okay, seeing no other hands, I'll just draw your committee's attention to item 11, which is the general information and correspondence from around Ontario. Items A through L, different correspondence pieces from different communities. Any comments or thoughts on that? Anything in particular that we would pull out? Or there's Councillor Bridgman. Go right ahead, Barb. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to see C pulled out, which is affordable internet, because in this latest round the commission reversed their 2019 stand that basically lets the smaller providers in at a lower rate. The big providers, again, have control of that rate system. And so I think we need to work really hard for our communities. It really works against our rural communities. So I would simply like us to support that.
Okay, thank you. Are there any others? Committee, anything else? Okay, so Cheryl, do we, under 11C, sorry, Councillor Hayes, go ahead.
Sorry, H, correspondence regarding lottery license. For small organizations, if you're not a nonprofit, you cannot take part in the OLG. They've sent a letter saying that, no, this isn't our policy, but I believe this is a request that they change the policy so that our community events can also benefit from this. I would support that if anybody would like to second it.
Okay, does it require a second? It does.
We will at the meeting, so to get it forward. So
Okay.
Alan Edwards said he would second it.
Alan Edwards said he was, there he is, thumbs up.
Okay. The one from Barb.
Okay, Barb Bridgman, so your affordable internet one, I'd certainly second that, if I might.
Yep.
I did hear Scott Aitchison say yesterday that he envisioned internet for everyone in Ontario by 2025, which was chilling. So there you go. Okay, are there any others? Any other elements here that you would relate to our particular council? Okay, seeing none. That's it. Okay, good. So I'm going to call this meeting to adjourn this meeting at 12:55, let's say, PM. And the next regular meeting of the General Finance Committee will be held on Wednesday, October 13th, 2021 at 9 a.m. or at the call of the chair electronically from the Council Chambers Municipal Office in Port Carling, Ontario. Sorry?
You need to read the movers and seconds.
Do we have it?
Movers and seconders of the motion.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I apologize. Moved by Councilor Nishikawa and seconded by Councilor Roberts. All those in favor? Good, thank you so much.
Mr. Chair, just if I can confirm with the clerk, we have a 1 o'clock meeting. I'm going to recommend, I think our first delegation is 2 p.m., that we delay that by 1 hour and start at 2 p.m. to allow people for lunch, if that's okay, Madam Clerk.
Okay, so officially it'll be, the council will start at 2 o'clock. Okay, I'll see you then. Thank you.
Thank you. And maybe, Madam Clerk, we can maybe start a webcast, but just put a note or somehow on the webcast that it's starting at 2 p.m. so those people aren't standing around. Thanks.
Very good. We'll do that. Thank you. Cheers.